Spanning the nerdosphere, talking about everything you want to hear. From comics to cosplay, from the cinematic universe to fan films and everything in between. It's time to get down and nerdy. Here are your hosts, James Witham and Nick Battaglia.
Hard to believe it's episode 20 of Down and Nerdy, where we promise if our ratings start to drop, we won't get a sex change in Europe.
Or we won't cancel the show like Fox.
No. But I'm James Witham alongside
Nick Battaglia. And why sex? Where the hell does sex change in Europe come from?
Oh, we will get to that coming up in Nerd News a little bit later on. Because if you've been following Nerd News this week, I think you kind of understand where I was going.
I think you've seen how big our page blew up yesterday about what we're going to get to later on the show. It's been pretty epic.
Before we get started, we have a lot of fun on this show. A little bit of a serious note, some news that came out today. I understand that you're going to be doing a video that's going to be going actually, as of when this show is posted, the video will probably have already been up. Since we're recording on Thursday.
Well, we're recording on Thursday. We're going to record the video after the show. And the video it's going to pertain to is now the Fantastic Four reboot, as we all know. It's coming whether you want it or not. And it hasn't been getting a lot of good press. But Michael B. Jordan came out today. And I don't know if this is the route they're going to go or if it's mostly just his opinion. But he said that, and I quote, they're going to pretty much be people with disabilities in the sense of their power. Pretty much in the sense of their powers, they're going to be disabilities. Now, I'm somebody, as we all know, with one arm, and that I'm not. I'm going to say this right now. I'm not angry by it. I'm not going to be one of those people that says, "Oh, he should." I'm not. It's not PC or anything.
Right.
It's just maybe when talking about it, he could have maybe said something worded a little bit differently, and pretty much the video is going to be just about my battle with hand one arm and just kind of like how Hollywood in general needs to kind of maybe here's how they should do it and how they shouldn't do it. And like I said, I'm not mad at Michael B. Jordan because who knows, maybe when he was being interviewed he was on the spur of the moment thing and he said it, but it's one of those things where it needs to be addressed, I think, at least from my standpoint. And it's like I said, it's not going to be a PC piece. It's not going to be a pity piece at all, because that's not... People who know me, people who met me know that I'm not one of those people. I'm not somebody that says, look at me. I feel sorry for me. I'm one of those people that says, look at me and now better yourself. Look at
exactly,
me and look at what you can do.
Yeah, so...
If I can do this, and you can do it.
So if you haven't had a chance to see the video yet, go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/downandnerdy. Also, it'll give you a link to our YouTube page, which I know we've been slacking on the YouTube page. We will start posting more videos, but this is definitely a good way to get it back started again. So we're not going to give away everything that's going to be in the video.
No.
Go ahead, go watch it for yourself, and give us your opinions on it, too. We don't care if you agree with what Nick has to say or not. We want to hear your opinions.
And like I said, it's not going to be about, Michael Jordan. It's not. Like I said, I'm not mad. I'm not offended by what he said. I rarely, if ever, get offended by anything. It's just, it kind of like, the wording was just more of like, okay, wait a minute, these people who can, turn invisible with a snap of a finger, turn, to a giant human torch and fly and snap a finger. At the end of the day, I can't do that with my arm.
No.
My arm can't grow. I can't do that, and I don't like it that they're calling it a disability or the way the phrasing was as a disability. I just don't. And knowing that, and I think that's probably how they're going to perceive it too. I know in X-Men that they do it, but that's different for different reasons.
There's a difference between
it's social reasons,
not
more
liking it and actually having it be something that disables you.
Yes.
I think you need to look up the word disable in the dictionary if you're not really clear on what that really means. So we'll switch gears a little bit here, and it'll actually, this kind of fits in perfectly to our main topic this week. We're going to be talking about how social media has affected the comic book industry, and stuff like this is a perfect example of how that can happen.
Exactly. I mean, we're going to get to our main topic, and like I said, it's just something that needs to be done. I think when you look at social media, and I'm going to get to this in the main topic, it's a way to people to express themselves. Yeah, you're going to have people who have the unpopular views, but there are going to be people who, hopefully what I can do with this video is coming out and make it like my own. Like I said, I wrote on our page, be my own version of a Superman logo. And like I said, I don't mean to draw attention to myself in any way. But in order to make a video like this, you kind of need to. And like I said in the video, I promise it's not going to be all about me, but it's going to be more about just perseverance in general and just, how you should view comics and essentially just superpowers. Because like I said, they're not real. I know I talked to a lot of kids. Going to the Shriners Hospital for kids, people like me missing limbs and stuff like that, worse off than I. I'm lucky to be what I am. I'm just missing a limb. I'm not missing all my limbs. I don't have a back condition. I don't have severe burns in my body. I'm not paralyzed. I'm able-bodied. I'm just missing a piece. And I'm just, I want to get that through. And like I said, it's just something I feel can help a lot of people. Like I said, it's not a puff piece or anything like that. It's to help people.
Absolutely.
But with that being said, every week on the first segment we start off the show by saying what we did over the weekend. And James, first off, I want you to recap your weekend, what you did, and then I'll get to mine because I gotta do some convincing in my
I know
weekend
moving. I know where you're going with this. I actually spent part of my weekend, and I think I'm going to be spending part of a lot of weekends for the next few weeks, just trying to get ready for our baby that's going to be coming here in a few weeks.
I saw your wife posted it on Facebook that you were putting together the crib. You finally got the crib, and you called it a crate.
I don't know why, because I've always had. This is obviously my first child, and I've raised puppies a lot throughout my life,
right?
And it just slipped out like that. And I know it's a crib. But you know what? Another reason that came out that way, and I'll explain it a little bit more too.
Oh, please do.
It was like a back of my mind kind of thing. Because apparently, and in my day job, I see a lot of different stories that are from entertainment. And one of the new things apparently on social media is that people are taking pictures of their children in their dogs' crates, just kind of playing and having a good time, and it's like, ha ha, look, they're in the cage kind of thing.
Yeah.
So people are doing that now, and this is all over social media, so I'm trying to figure out why that, and then that was stuck in my mind. I see the crib, and I'm like, oops.
I'm just picturing your son, like, playing a harmonica, and just, like, sitting in the crib.
Nobody knows
the trouble I see. Except my parents when they're changing my diaper.
Yeah, exactly. So, it was a slip of the tongue. Everybody thought it was funny.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not an idiot. I know it's not a crate, but, when you've had nothing but puppies your entire life, this is your first child, I'm not...
Baby crates.
I don't have a lot of experience with crib putting together or cribs or anything like that. This is all new to me, even though, I was one of the older kids, so I was the babysitter of the family. I took care of a lot of the younger kids, babies, all kinds of various ages, but I never had to live that all the time. I don't know it as well.
Dude, story time with you must have been fucking horrific. And that, boys and girls, is when Bane broke Batman's back. The end.
I tried to keep it clean, Actually, it was more me. What's funny is it was more me playing video games over at their houses while I was watching them, and them sitting in awe of me. Sir, I'm not even kidding. There was this one instance where I was playing Super Mario 3. This is still when it was fairly new.
Yes.
And I can't remember what movie it was, where it was like a video game tournament, and they were playing Super Mario 3 on this giant screen. I think it was Fred Savage was in the movie.
Oh, the Wizard, I think.
There you go. And you know that scene where he's playing Super Mario on this giant screen and there's people behind him like cheering?
Yeah.
That actually happened to me. I'm over at my uncle's house playing Super Mario 3 on his big screen TV. This is back when I'm picturing the big screen TVs where that are giant.
The tubes.
The huge back with the tubes. So I'm sitting there on the floor. And it's towards the end, we're getting towards the point where you're about to finish the game with that I've already finished 1,000 times by myself.
Right.
And I've got at least 15, 20 kids behind me like, yeah, go, because I've never seen the end of it before, right? Mm-hmm. So they're all cheering me on, and at this point, you kind of do get jazzed. You're like, all right, I'm gonna make this look easy, kind of thing.
I would make these children's lives better by beating this game.
Yeah, of course, you beat the game, and there's this cheer, and I'm like, are you serious right now? Is this really happening? So, in
the back of your mind, you're like, I'm gonna be a living legend, and then you realize, oh, when these kids get older, they're like, yeah, I beat Super Mario 3 too. You're not as great as you once were.
That's the thing about kids, too, is once they grow up and they realize...
Oh, they'll let you know.
They realize that wasn't so cool after all, because that's kind of easy.
Speaking of video games and kids, okay, so my little cousins are like 10 and like 11. We're playing Call of Duty, And I don't play shooting games a lot. I mean, I have Black Ops 2, but I don't play it. I'm mostly a sports gamer. Like, you play me like Madden or NBA 2K, I'll whoop your ass.
Right.
But, I mean, I'm playing Call of Duty, I'm dying left and right, I'm getting shot, and they're like, oh, wow, Nick, you really suck. And this is a 10-year-old telling me this. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I don't know.
Well, part of it
what's
is the
going
jack-offs that's sitting on the friggin' hill that know where the respawn spot is, so they snipe you the second you come back. How frustrating is that? If you're one of those douchebags, that's the reason I don't play those games, because I don't want to rip my face off and throw it at my television.
Part of me, I laugh, though, because I'm like, wow, a 10-year-old really just told me that I suck at video games.
That is pretty funny.
And it made me even, I mean, I'm 25, man. I've been playing video games since I was, like, out of the womb. And I'm just like, dude, just think 10, 20 years, when your kid can pick up a controller.
Yep.
I mean, Cody mentioned it, I think, in our second episode ever, that his kid, like, yeah, he was, like, 5 years old and picked up a controller and mastered everything in Batman Arkham City.
That's what my son is going to be able to do. He's going to pick up that controller, and he's going to be better than I ever was, and that's exactly what I want to happen. I want him to be better than I ever was, because I think anybody would want that for their kids. You know, you don't want them to necessarily think that you suck, because they don't think that.
Oh, they would see your dad, your mom as a superhero, pretty much.
Exactly. You want them to see you as that larger than life figure and somebody that they look up to, but at the same time, as a parent, you know, somebody who's about to become a parent, I want him to be so much better at so many things than I ever was.
Oh, yeah.
But I want to give him that foundation for that, you know.
But as a competitor, as like a geek,
as a competitor,
you're like I want him to be good, but not as me, but not better than me.
I will say right now that there's going to be times where I'm going to take him on that basketball court and I'm going to take him to task. Because
you're gonna dunk on an infant, like somebody blocks a shot and a person in a wheelchair.
Assuming I could dunk, maybe not that far, but
I'm just picturing your son.
I did it to my cousins.
I'm picturing your son like in a little car seat, and you're just dunking over him, like, yeah, what now?
To this day, one of my cousins, who I actually coached when he was a kid, one of my cousins to this day has still never beaten me in basketball one-on-one. And still wants to play me so he can beat me, because he never has. There's been a couple times.
Does it make you feel good being a child?
A little bit.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm not that guy.
Your son's going to have great self-esteem, that's all I'm going to say.
No, I'm just going to, I want him to be a competitor.
I know.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to completely trash him.
It's going to be like, it's like George Carlin famously said in his last special, where he goes, kids, they don't know they're a loser until he goes, oh, you get a trophy. This person gets a trophy. And then they don't find they're a loser until their boss comes in and knocks the shit and goes, Jimmy, peg your shit, you're a loser, get the fuck out of here.
That's right. I hate that, too. Everybody gets a trophy. Come on. That didn't happen when I was younger. So I don't want to get on my soapbox.
Let's put it this way. It did happen when I was younger. I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, there was a basketball team that had like won 0 games. They still got a trophy. But it was funny because the entire room was laughing because they're all celebrating. Like, yeah, we're like 0-15 and we finished the season. But everybody got a trophy. But I got a bigger trophy with my name on it.
There you go. There you go.
I solidified my ranks as an athlete.
So I mean, you want your kids to be better than you ever were at things, and I think that's the bottom line. And however
not just that, but you want to be better people too.
Right. However I can impart that, and I'm not gonna. I kid around. I'm not going to go out there and like kick his ass and leave him lying in a puddle of sweat on the basketball court, and I just step over him or something. It's not going to get
sweat all over. He's like he drew like a bat symbol and like sidewalk chalk, and you're like spinning on it and just sweating all over and just washing it down the street.
I want him to learn.
He's crying because Daddy ruined his masterpiece.
I want him to learn that if he's going to run right up to somebody and shoot a basketball, that it's going to get smacked back and.
Or they're going to get body checked. I mean, I grew up in a hockey family, so I mean, you're going to get body checked.
You know, he's going to learn eventually that, okay, if I run right up to somebody and try to shoot a ball, they're going to block the shot.
Yeah.
I want him to learn that. I don't want to get out of his way and be like, Jameson, great job, you did good by doing that. No, you need to learn that that's not how you do that. I'm not going to smack it back into his face. But I'm going to tap it out of the way.
I just realized your wife is listening to this, and she's probably horrified right now.
No, she's probably laughing hysterically right now, actually.
But speaking of things evolving and getting better than the predecessor, I went with a friend of mine who was also listening to the show, Josh, on Sunday to go see Rise or Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Such long titles, I forget which one is which.
Which is funny because they had that marathon, Planet of the Apes movie marathon on. I can't remember. It might have been Sci-Fi.
Probably but they probably showed a Tim Burton one too, didn't they?
They did. No, actually, they didn't.
They didn't?
They didn't. They showed all the previous ones, starting, of course, from the beginning, Planet of the Apes, all the way through.
Oh.
And all the titles, I'm looking at them like, really? Really? Now, I'm not a fan of the genre, so I don't remember the titles off the top of my head.
I only saw the first one, but that's because I had to see it for a class.
But I looked at some of those titles, I'm like, wow, really? First of all, there was that many, and second of all, these are the titles you went with? Okay.
But I saw Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Now, mind you, I didn't see a lot of movies, but from stuff I've heard, it said, okay, it's more of kind of like they combined. It took like the last few movies and kind of combined them into they moved them up pretty much. And this one, like I said, it takes place pretty much like 10 years, a few years after the first one, and the simian flu has spread. Now, the simian flu, I posted an article on this on our Facebook page last week, facebook.com/downandnerdy, that it's actually based off of a real thing. Like, it could happen. It's based off the Ebola virus.
I like how you prefaced it by saying there is no actual
simian flu.
Because you know we would have gotten some message of, what? What's going on?
And that's going to tie into our main topic. But, damn you, Steven Spielberg, you monster.
Unicorn murdering bastard.
You, that poor Triceratops. But, no, so, I mean, I just wanted to see it. It was about over 2 hours. Freaking amazing!
Well, you saw the first one, too.
I saw the first one.
You saw Rise of.
I saw Rise twice. And you gotta see it. Now, James, here's why you gotta see it. Dual machine gun wielding apes on horseback.
Okay, I understand that that's a cool thing. I don't dispute that at all.
But you also gotta see it because, like I said, when you look at the movies, they're set up so perfectly. Like, you feel for the apes. It's not like in a Burton thing where it's like, oh, these things are monsters and they're horrible. No, like, you can understand the first 10 minutes of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is about just the apes. It's like, okay, this is how far they've gone in like 10 years or so, and they have their own community. They're in the woods. They're undisrupted until Jason Clarke, who's Malcolm, pretty much comes by and disrupts them. Like, well, why are you here? And they don't know they're there. The humans don't know the apes are out there. They're like, hey, we need to get to this dam because we're running out of power. Like I said, it's post-apocalyptic. Literally, like 90% of the population has died from the simian flu. So I mean, there was mandated quarantines, and now there's a resistance led by Gary Oldman, who plays Dreyfus. And so like, hey, we gotta get to this dam. So could we work with you and get this power going so we can generate power? Long story short. I don't want to spoil it because it's leading to why this war happens between the apes and the humans. But something happens that goes against, I'll say this, the apes' mentality, like what they believe in. At least with Caesar, who's played by Andy Serkis, who's a fantastic job.
That guy should have an Oscar named
By the way,
after him.
all the people that played the apes in the movie, phenomenal. Like honestly, they should have. I think you want to talk about Oscars and how Andy Serkis should be. How they should have a category for it. It should be, I think, for like best motion capture.
Oh yeah,
and it should
definitely.
And it should go to like the people ahead of the motion capture department.
Yeah, it's a new era, man. I mean, you gotta give it the times there, motion picture arts and sciences.
But literally though, there was times where I was on the edge of my seat. So was my friend. A lot of people in the theater were like on the edge of our seats, of like, oh my god, this is happening. Like, it's going to happen. I mean, you see the trailer and like, oh my god, and it's like, oh, okay. And then it's like, oh my god, it's back, it's on the edge of the seat. It keeps you involved and it keeps you interested. It's just so intense. And you feel for the apes. Like I said, it's not like in Tim Burton's or the other ones where it's like, okay, they're just
where they're evil.
Where they're evil and you don't know much about them. This one, it's like, wow, they have families. You see that Caesar's wife is sick and Malcolm's like, Malcolm pretty much plays the James Franco character like he was in the first one where he was like, not the father figure, but more like the friend.
Yeah.
And like, at the end, it's pretty much just like, and it's not spoiling the ending because you know what's going to happen. It's going to be an all-out. I mean, it's a war now.
Yeah, it's a throwdown, yeah.
But, I mean, what's the throwdown on this one? But, I mean, then the next one's going to be an all-out war. Like, the army's coming, pretty much. And it's Malcolm and Caesar, and they're standing in this pavilion. And Malcolm's like, I thought there was a chance. I thought we could have done it. and they were of peace and living in harmony. And Caesar's like, I thought that too. And at that moment, your heart just sinks. You're just like, wow, Caesar's not an overall bad guy. Overall, these two guys want peace.
Right.
But because these things happen, like both sides are at fault for certain things, they can't have it. And, it was like a good situation was about to come unfold, and now it sets up for the next one, which I think is going to come out, I think, in 2016, I believe.
Yeah, I think it is 2016.
And it's just, like I said, it's going to be, just misinformed, sad film from, like, the human perspective. Because, like I said, it could have been all averted had a couple of things that happened in this film.
Right. Let me ask you this. As somebody who's not a fan of the genre, that I am not, if I didn't see Rise, could I see Dawn and not be lost?
You can, but I prefer you see Rise because Rise sets up to like how the apes got to where they are and everything else. It's not like other certain sequels you can say like, okay, I don't need to see the first one at all. But this one there are references to the first one. It does start off with the whole simian flu outbreak in the credits, pretty much. And I would see the first one because, like I said, it starts off with like the apes going against the humans and kind of why the humans hate the apes and such, and how Caesar became Caesar. Like how, in the movie, it's pretty much the whole, there's this thin line that is crossed, back on and forth about like, Caesar loves the humans more than the apes. And it's like, yeah, because he was raised by a human. And then it wasn't until in the first movie, where he goes to the ape compound and is mistreated. And it's like, but then it's like, okay, he's like, humans did this. Like, there's a great scene where Koba, like his pretty much like his second ape in command, Caesar's like, that humans aren't bad, whatever. And Koba, who was tested on by the humans, like, human did this, points to a scar. Human did this, points to another scar. Human did this, points to a scar on his arm. It's like, they cut me. And so it's kind of like, you can see like where Caesar's like, okay, I know my ape brethren are people who were like tortured and stuff like that. It's like, by the other hand, I do feel compassion
There's a
for
struggle
humans.
there.
There's a struggle,
Okay.
and that's why I think you need to see the first one because it sets up that inner struggle and it makes you like I said, it doesn't make you hate Caesar, but makes you more compassionate towards him.
I just worry that I'm going to see this. I'm like, wow, people are douchebags. I already feel like that anyway. I don't need to, I already feel like the people can be real douchebags sometimes. I don't want to reinforce that point even more. Like, wow, why can't they just stop being douchebags and let these apes live their lives?
It's shown in the trailer, like Caesar goes, apes do not want war.
Yeah.
And it's like, stay where you are, we'll stay where we are.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
And then here comes Gary Oldman pissing people off.
Yeah, he's just like, and he was one of those guys where like, he goes, they're animals, you can't trust them, and there's a scene where it's very sad, like there's parts of the movie where you didn't cry, but you were almost moved to tears because there's a scene where like, they get there's power and everything like that, and Oldman has his iPad, and he's lost his family. And what's the first thing that happens? You hear that charge thing? We have like an iPhone, pretty much, and he opens up and it's like a picture of him and his family.
Oh wow!
And it's just like you can see why this guy's upset. It's not like my family's dead. It's like, oh my god, he lost everything.
So
he lost little kids and everything.
So they're not necessarily being douchebags. They just have
being protective.
different views.
They're looking out for themselves.
Okay, because it's easy to see the trailer and look at it and say, wow, they're just being dicks. These the apes are here, they're here. Why can't they just leave them alone, kind of thing?
No, it's more of like the apes are like, even towards the end of the first movie, it's kind of like, okay, they're going into the woods kind of thing, and it's like the apes are building their own civilization and teaching and have their own way of life. And like I said, it's not until like the middle of the movie where Malcolm goes to Dreyfus and says, hey, we found something in the woods we need to know about. And there's apes there and stuff like that. So, and that sets up the tension between Dreyfus and Oldman, too.
I've had enough people tell me...
Or not Dreyfus and Oldman, Dreyfus and Malcolm.
I've had enough people tell me that I should go see this to kind of make me at least curious as to whether or not I should see this.
It made $73 million opening weekend.
I'm not saying it doesn't look like it's got some good action. The story's not good. It's just that traditionally, the Planet of the Apes franchise just wasn't for me.
But I'll say this,
maybe I'm too caught up in the older movies.
I think that's the problem. You're too caught up in the older movies. Like, the newer movies are much better than the older ones.
So maybe I just need to suck it up and watch Rise, and if I like where that goes, then see Dawn, and then maybe I'll be hooked by the time
It's
the
like
third
our
movie
new
is done.
comic book rating system, where it's like, see, pick it up. If you're not sure about it, you can put it. You don't have to get issue number 2. If you don't want to, you don't want to see it, you can drop it or whatever. And speaking of picking things up, dropping them, and adding to your poll, that's gonna do it for this segment. Coming up next is what we're reading, and we got a couple of tasty comics this week. We're gonna dive into one by a dear friend of the show and Comic-Con of Tidewater extraordinaire, the king of Tidewater Comic-Con, Mike Federale. You don't want to miss what James is going to say about his comic.
Here we go.
And here we go. So you don't want to miss it. More Don Nerdy. What we're reading is coming up next. Well, boys and girls, grab your bags, grab your boards, grab your pens, because it's time to discuss what we're reading and what you should most likely be reading. And this week, James, you have, I don't want to say the short straw, but tread lightly.
That's a great way to get this started.
Tread lightly, sir.
No, when I was at the Mega Nerd Garage sale for Tidewater Comic Con last weekend, I was talking to Brian, who was one of the right hand men of Mike Federale, and I'm thumbing through the long boxes in front of him, and he says to me, "Hey, have you grabbed Mike's comic?" And I went, "Mike's comic? What are you talking about?" He's like, "Here." So he hands me issue number 1 and issue number 2 of the Skyrocket,
Right.
and I went, and I thought about it for a second, and I went, okay, why not? So, I get the rest of my dollar comics, and I go up to Mr. Cashier, Mike Federale at the time.
Mr. Cashier. I'm just picturing Federale with, like in the old days, in the old arcade days, when you had the people that had the quarters.
I'm very upset he
little
didn't wear
jacks
the
of quarters.
apron. Yeah, I'm
the
very
apron
upset.
with the quarter. You know what I'm saying? With the quarter ejectors on it.
Yeah, I'm very upset. So, Mike, next time you have the Mega Nerd Garage sale, you need to have the Tidewater Comic Con apron with all the change and all that stuff. That's what people expect. And that's what you need to do. So I went ahead and I grabbed it, and I thought, okay, I'll give it a shot. I even told him, I said, we're gonna read this. Oh, I'm gonna read this, and we're gonna talk about it on what we're reading. So let's just dive right in, shall we?
Let's.
It's the story is actually written by Mike Federale. The art is by Os Petroli. Excuse me, Os. I hope I didn't butcher your name. But, I tried the best I can. And the main character's name is Sam Robbins. And what's funny is she has a robot named Watson.
Nice.
No real reason that she has the robot other than the robot is there. And it's kind of like a robot, like how Alfred would be with Batman.
Yeah, he's like Rosie from the Jetsons.
Right, but it's definitely more lighthearted. And this is a robot that actually worries about her safety.
Like Rosie
kind of
from the
thing.
Jetsons.
Very much so. So basically, you get the story that she was a supervillain named Skyrocket from age 8 to 17, and she specializes in, and this is a direct quote, state secrets and advanced tech thefts. So that's what she does.
Okay.
Now, basically, in the first issue, she's tasked by the government to eliminate this creature. Now, I say creature. She goes to it's part of Florida that this creature's in. Now, to me, the creature kind of looks like this hairy ape version of Doomsday.
So it's Honey Boo Boo.
With, like, bangs or something. So, I mean, it's not that it wasn't an interesting creature, because it kind of was interesting. It was definitely different. And all it was doing was causing property damage. Now, she can fly. I don't know if this is something that she's just born with. I didn't see, like, a jetpack or anything, but she's clearly flying.
Right.
So she does battle with this creature. And what's funny is that she uses some sort of a sonic device to subdue it. There's little circles that come out, like whoop, 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 whoop kind of thing. And the creature, this actually turns the creature into a dog.
Okay.
Now, the interesting plot twist here, though, is that the dog that it turns into turns out was a dog she had when she was a child 10 years ago.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, that's an interesting little plot twist. So how is that possible? So she brings the dog back to her little hideout in the first issue.
Right.
Now, remember, the government tasked her to do this, and they said, is the creature dead? She said, yes, the creature's dead. So she lies to the guy, and he says, you lie to me, there's going to be consequences. And that's when a guy busts in wearing a mask saying that you have something that belongs to us. And that's the end of issue 1. Issue 2 picks up with this confrontation, and, she subdues this guy pretty easily. Turns out he's an assassin that works for this guy named Krieger, and they want this creature. Now, apparently, the dog can retransform into this creature by some sort of whistling sound.
Right.
So whatever this sound is, the dog can transform into it. Now, basically, this is a product of some black lab. That's what they call it. They call it the Black Lab, and the government wants it because it's national
Okay,
security.
for a second there, when you said Black Lab, I'm like, wait, is a dog a
Right,
Black
see,
Lab?
and I know he did that on purpose. I know that's why he called it that. So bravo, Mike. Good job. So, and the government wants it because it's national security, and
Right.
this Krieger guy wants it obviously because it can make these creatures for some reason. Now, here was one of the cool moments in the second issue.
Okay.
This Uno guy that was the assassin that was sent is trying to tell him you don't know how powerful this Krieger guy is, yada, yada, yada. And then he starts clicking, and they're like, what's that? Well, it turns out he's got nitroglycerin in his blood.
Wow.
And he's going to explode in any second. So the agent from the government that shows up at her apartment, by the way, she fesses up that she lied when he shows up. He shoots him.
Okay.
Just shoots him, and they're like, what the hell? And they say, well, better that he explodes all over the place. So basically...
But if you shot him, and he has nitroglycerin going through his blood, wouldn't that make him explode either way?
That was one of the things that I was like, okay, hold on a second. So...
Because he's literally a walking barrel
right,
full
exactly.
of gunpowder.
And you shoot somebody, the blood's going to come out. So maybe that was one of those things where it was like, okay, hold on a second.
Okay.
But this guy works for an agency called Sub Rosa, and at the end of issue 2, there's this kind of memo that said to this Agent Evans that says, hey, we weren't sure about bringing her aboard. This is your pet project. She's your responsibility. And that's where issue 2 ends.
Okay.
And I got to say that through 2 issues, I would have liked to see more of a backstory on the Skyrocket character. Because you're just kind of thrown in. I don't know if this was an arc that was done, because this was his first attempt at doing a comic. This was back in 2010.
Right.
I don't know if if this was based off of something else, and maybe there was more of an origin or a backstory.
Or maybe kind of dip in between, kind of like with Legendary Story Lord, where it's like, okay, it's about the person in the now, but here's a couple of references about their past.
Right, exactly. I mean, he gives you a couple little tidbits about, okay, she was a supervillain, now she's trying to reform herself.
Right.
But I wanted to know more about how do you become a supervillain when you're 8? What happened to make that happen? I wanted how did she get the robot? How did this Watson robot come about? I wanted to know. And it was definitely, and I'll say the first issue definitely built well on the second.
Right.
I mean, there was definitely good chronology there. It was weird because even though I said there wasn't enough of a backstory, it almost seemed like at times things were moving a little bit too fast.
Okay.
I would like to hear more about the science of how this dog just transforms from a dog to a creature because of a sound. I want to know how they came up with that.
Here's a question. Are there more issues, or was it just the 2?
I know for sure there's one more issue, and then there was like a one-shot type issue after it, because that's actually in the end of the second book.
Okay.
They say, okay, here's the rest.
Because part of me thinks that the one-shot, I think, would maybe tie
and maybe that does. Maybe they go back. The art was pretty darn good. It was black and white, so I would say that the art was definitely good. I mean, what you would expect for an indie book. Actually, the cover art was really good.
Yeah,
I thought.
You sent me a text last night and you showed me the cover art and some of the art and style. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good art. Like, it's pretty solid.
So, while it wasn't perfect, and I wouldn't say that it was great, what Mike did here in the story, even though I wanted more, but that's the point. I wanted to know more. If it sucked, if it was a bad book, if it was a bad story, I wouldn't care about the character. I wouldn't care about what happened to her before. I actually wanted to know, okay, well, how did she become this, and how did she get these powers and these gadgets?
So it's kind of like he omits a lot from the beginning, first couple books, because he wants you to read more and say, hey, in the anthology or whatever, the last book, like, here's where everything comes into place.
And if that was the point, then bravo.
Bravo.
So, because I actually cared about the character, and it was intriguing to me. So if that's what he was going for, I would say bravo on that. And I still want to know what happens, so I'm either going to have to pick up the other issues from him, or I'm just going to ask him, dude, what happened to her? So, you could probably find these books at Tidewater Comic Con. Stop by our table while you're there, as a matter of fact, October 18th, Tidewater Comic Con. But, when you see Mike at the con or at any of the other events that he's doing for Tidewater Comic Con that you can find on our Facebook page, ask him about it. So as far as what I would rate this book, I would say pick it up. Because it's interesting. I don't think you can add it to your polls because I don't think they're doing it anymore.
Right.
But I know he's doing other projects now. But I would pick it up because it's an interesting story, and the action was pretty good. There were definitely intriguing parts about the book, and I would see more about this character. I think it was a pretty good book, especially for somebody doing their first comic. It was pretty darn good. I liked it.
Nice. I mean, so like I said, props to Mike, man. I mean, like I said, when I directed films, and I mean, we both work in radio, so I mean, when we both did our first shows, we weren't good. Even this podcast, I made a solemn vow never to go back to our first episode.
But if you listen to our first episode, by the way, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I will be totally honest. I don't know if I referenced this in the first episode or not. That was my first podcast ever.
Yeah, that was also my first time really working with James, too. But no, like, when you make a first time and everything, it's not going to be spectacular.
I'd like to think we've come a long way.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
we've come
yeah.
leaps and bounds. I mean, dude, we've done that. But I mean, now, speaking of sort of what we're reading segment, and so I'm a big Spider-Man fan.
As am I, you know that.
And I went to go pick up my poll last week, and there were 2 Spider-Man comics. One was the whole Learn to Crawl series, which I had the first couple issues of, but I told Bob over at Fantasy Escape Comics and Cards to drop it because I'm like, well, the art wasn't really that great, and it was just like,
I'm on the verge of dropping it too. I actually
it was
talked to him
filler.
about that as well.
It's a bunch of filler that like, you don't really need. And so, but he's put in my poll the Spider-Man comic, and I'm like, oh, okay, because I know Amazing Spider-Man's in my poll, but I'm like, this is just Spider-Man. And the cover, I mean, there's 2 covers. The variant cover, which you got.
Yeah, I got the variant.
You lucky son of a bitch. And I mean, I got the regular cover, but it's awesome. Now
it's very cool, yeah.
Now, the front cover, now, at first, I swear to God, I thought that was Eddie Brock. Because it was a big dude, but in the Venom suit and the symbiote, but it's Kingpin. And it's Marvel's 100th anniversary Spider-Man.
Which they're doing that a lot. They've done Fantastic Four, and I think they're going to do X-Men next week. So they're going back and doing a bunch of celebratory issues.
Yeah, and now the confusing thing, and here's what I'm going to dive into before this whole story, or lack thereof a story. Now, the comic was written by Sean Ryan, and the art was done by In-Hyuk Lee. And above their names says number 1. So like, oh, cool, it's like a first issue, it's like a little bit of a run, maybe like a 4-part series. Then you open up the inside cover, and it says, Great Power, Part 8 of 8. So it's like,
what the hell?
What the hell? So it's like, wait a minute, so it's the number 1 issue, but it's Part 8 of 8? Like, it starts off an ending. And you open up...
Thanks for that.
So you open up, and I'm going to tell you right now, the art is fucking phenomenal.
It's unbelievable from what I'm seeing.
It's amazing. So it starts off with, they're in Kingpin's office. Peter is, and Eddie Brock is. Eddie Brock just got shot by the Kingpin and killed. And pretty much the symbiote takes over Kingpin. Peter's like, you shot and killed Eddie. So it's like, again, no build up as to why they're there. Nothing.
It just jumps right in.
It's just like, boom, somebody's dead.
Wow.
It's like if Original Sin pretty much just says saying, hey, something's going on, at the Watcher's tower. It's like, hey, open up. Watcher's dead. His eyes are gone.
Actually, I'm looking at it right now. The first bubble in the first panel just says "no!" exclamation point in giant letters. That's how you start out the book.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, it's like you killed Eddie. Don't you dare fucking do that again. I will kill you. So, anyways, reason why is just because bad Star Wars memory. But fuck you, George Lucas. But anyways, no, it just starts off, and like I said, it's just like, why'd you do it? Da da da. He's like, oh, I'm gonna be this new tech-powered symbiote kind of thing. And fast forward, a lot of the panels are either just picture panels with a word bubble, just like a word on it, or it's just like a sound panel where it's just somebody crashing through a window and says "crash" on it. So it's very visual. And the reason why I did that is because they want to take look of, the art of In-Hyuk's art. And it, like I said, it's very awesome. I mean, so pretty much the symbiote is like this little tech symbiote, so he can go through, it's kind of like, picture Electro with a symbiote kind of thing, but it's but a big Kingpin.
That's kind of weird since it's Kingpin.
Yeah, but he has like these gloves or something like that makes him like he can go through and go through power, like go through billboards and stuff. But the thing is, like, so it's one big giant chase scene because Peter Parker is pretty much naked, and he has no web fluid, no nothing. He's just going on his speed and his ability to climb, and it's just a whole giant chase thing. And they finally get to this kind of like this final this fight, and it's in this wooded area, and it's pretty much Peter whittling, like making a fire and then attacking it, and it's like, okay, and
It's like,
ends.
what's going on here?
Yeah, and it just ends. Like he goes at it with Venom, or Kingpin technically, hits him with the fire stick, and pretty much the symbiote just explodes, which is weird because the symbiote actually comes off a person when loud noises happen.
Was it ever that easy to? Which
Not
is,
that I know.
I mean, that's weird.
Like, hit it with fire, and the symbiote starts coming apart, and you can pull him out of it. It's like, no, the symbiote. It's like loud noises, like Carnage with sound waves,
exactly.
and barriers. But I mean, and it's just like, and then it just at the end, I'm like, it was a big what the hell moment. He gets home, and he still has bloodshed and everything, and it's like, Aunt May's dead.
What?
Like she was murdered. So I was like, wait a minute. Peter goes after this, like, because Aunt May was murdered? Like, what the hell? Like, is he an orphan now? And it's like, what's going on?
This is so weird.
Again, this is why, Marvel, you don't start off at the end.
This is so weird.
Like I said, the only pro was the amazing art.
The art is
That's it.
fantastic.
Ed Huckley did an amazing job with the art. The big cons, it's like cover says number 1, but it's the interior credit, but it's 8 of 8. There's no earlier issues. I looked it up. I'm like, okay, are there any earlier issues? I can't find nothing on it. I put in with great power, part 1 of whatever. Nothing. And the fight's not long between Kingpin, Venom, and Spider-Man. Well, Peter Parker, technically. No sense of story structure. Like I said, mostly blank panels. Mostly emphasizing on the art. Rating, it's something that you can't really drop it because you can't add it, really.
Right,
It's something that I would say ignore. Only unless you're a big art person, like you're like, I love looking at comic book art.
Yeah.
Pick it up. But if you're somebody like me, or you looking for story structure or anything like that, you're going to be very, very disappointed.
It's weird too because I kind of feel like is there anybody that hasn't had the symbiote at this point?
Yeah.
I mean, is this like you show up at the Oprah show and it's like you get a symbiote and you get a symbiote,
You
get a
get-
symbiote.
you all get
It's like,
symbiotes.
Come on, jeez.
But-
But the art is great.
The art's
But
great.
At the same time, come on, man.
And if you can, get the variant edition. If you're going to pick it up just for the art, get the variant.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to get it in the first place because the variant cover, even the regular cover that you have, is phenomenal.
Yeah, because the variant cover is just Venom or Kingpin Venom. But I mean, it's phenomenal. But like I said, it's something that I would not say you should go pick up at this moment, unless you're a big comic book art person.
Right.
Like you're someone who collects comic book art or just art in general. I would say go pick this up.
Right.
But that's going to do it for our What We're Reading segment. And coming up next, there's going to be no trailer talk this week because there was just a bunch of nerd news, mostly Marvel, mostly infuriating. Stay tuned. We'll stay tuned. More Down Nerdy coming up. Alright, boys and girls, nerd internets alike, it's time to once again go around the interwebs, whether you want to or not, because, especially this week, because it's time for what, James?
Nerd News!
Thor is now a woman.
Wow.
Starting October, Marvel's going to release a new Thor series where, yes, Thor is, and this is not a girl taking over a mantle, this is Thor, like Odin's
This is
daughter.
Thor. They made that very clear. They said it's not Lady Thor, it's not She-Thor, it's not Thorette. This is Thor.
And, I mean, Jason Aaron, he's going to be writing the series. Will Moss, who's an editor for Marvel, said, quote, "The inscription on Thor's hammer reads, 'Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor.' Well, it's time to update that inscription. The new Thor continues Marvel's proud tradition of strong female characters like Captain Marvel, Storm, Black Widow, and more. And this new Thor isn't temporary a temporary female substitute, she's now the one and only Thor, and she is worthy.
I like how Marvel assumes that those are strong female characters.
Yeah.
By comparison. Come on, man.
And then Marvel came out and said if we can accept Thor as a frog and a horse-faced alien, we should be able to accept Thor as a woman.
Okay, first of all, the frog thing was a setup for something else.
It was a setup for Pet Avengers and also, it was known as Throg. Thor was captured, like Thor was the frog, yes. Number one was 1980s. We all know what happened in the 80s.
Yep.
Number two, it was a gimmick. It wasn't like, okay, he's going to be permanently Thor.
Yeah,
it's like he got trapped in the body. I mean,
this wasn't a serious thing. And when it's a transformation type thing because of an alien entity, that's not the same. That's totally different.
And Simon Walterson was Throg. For the entire, the Pet Avengers, it was Simon Walterson, not Thor.
Right.
Now, female Thor, which I'm going to say because it's like, there's still two Thors, I'm sorry. Because Thor is still being published as a dude. So female Thor is the 8th leading female protagonist in the Marvel Universe. And I'm going to say this, before we get started on diving into this. If you listen to the show, you know everything we do for Cosplay Tuesday and just our thoughts on cosplay and just women in general, you know we're not sexist.
No, not at all.
We need to be able, when it comes to stuff like this, folks, we need to be able to, and I know people can say, oh, it's two guys talking about Thor's woman. Well, here's the thing. We need to be able to, in this day and age, have discussions about this open-minded.
And we've gotten some female perspectives on this, too.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that as well.
Yeah. I mean, you said, a lot of females were like, I went on comment boards and stuff like that, and a lot of females, a lot of people I know I talked to yesterday about this are upset because they said, why couldn't I just give Lady Sif a more prominent role, or even just do the crazy thing and just create a new female character?
And I asked my wife about it because I told her we were going to be talking about it, and the first thing she did was give me that face where she's really upset and confused, and she said, why?
Yeah.
That's all she said. And I think that's what kind of we're all feeling. Why?
Yeah.
Like you said, why not do that? I actually read a really good quote that I wanted to read word for word from a user on Facebook. I didn't want to give out his name because I didn't want to, I don't
send the
messages.
Want to
out anybody. So it says, I guess sensationalism passes for innovation when you can't create good stories.
Yeah.
To me, that was the perfect quote and sums up all of this Marvel stuff that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, because it's like, let's not be original and create new characters and expand the universe. Let's take the ones we have and let's change them by race, sex, whatever, and just whatever.
And they're contradicting what you just read about traditions of strong female characters by doing this. If you had a strong female character in Black Widow, this wouldn't be necessary. To me, this is just showing a total lack of confidence in Black Widow as a female lead in the Avengers. You can't have it both ways. Either she's a big female lead or she's not. So now you have to do this? I don't see why you have to.
And I understand that, with the whole Captain Marvel and people are saying, well, some people are saying, oh, my shop, we can't keep this off the shelves. But it's like, at the end of the day, not many people, I think, are clamoring for Captain Marvel as they would for, a Wonder Woman.
No, and I mean, if you read a lot of the Infinity arcs and stuff where she played a major role, she is a strong female character, but that was their choice not to use her.
Yeah.
They did not they could have used her right away in the Avengers movies if they chose to, but they wanted Scarlett Johansson, and Scarlett Johansson was going to play Captain Marvel. So, I mean, you could have brought Carol Danvers in a long time ago in the cinematic universe if you wanted to, but clearly they didn't feel like she was a strong enough female character. Now, did they?
No, and the thing is, too, is, a lot of people are talking about, in Marvel, and Will Moss even said in this quote, is whoever holds the hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor. Keynote, the power of Thor. Does that mean they will be Thor in name? The one thing about Marvel is, and this isn't if she's a woman or whatever, for Thor, it's the fact that they're treating Thor like a rank instead of an actual, Thor is a real mythological kind of counterpoint on Norse mythology.
Yeah.
And I feel like, well, we can have a horse-faced Thor and a frog Thor. Why not? It's like, why can't we have a woman Thor? It's because it's not a serious thing. Like those were gimmicks.
Yeah, that was clearly a joke. Let's just put that out there right now. This is serious business. And the other thing I don't get is you do this when you're number one in sales.
Yeah.
They're already number one overall in sales. I realize Batman's number one, but they're number one overall in sales. Why do this? And why not create a new... Why not focus on Thor's sister? You just did that.
And speaking of that, I picked up one of my new pickups this week. Actually, yesterday was Thor and Loki: The 10th Realm. The first issue I read last night, and it explains... Now, his sister technically isn't in it yet, but it explains how when she was younger, she was murdered by this witch in a war, and Odin, and it pretty much banished it, the witch banished it, was called the 10th Realm, and Odin pretty much closed the gate, and he sealed it, so it was kind of like, the part where like Loki's like, I found this map, and there's this like X over where this realm is, kind of thing, and it's like, or like a question mark, it's like not even there. So she's not introduced yet, but it's kind of like, okay, she's she'll likely be introduced in later issues.
Right.
But that would be awesome if they had, hey, Thor's sister.
I would be all over that. I would be all over that. Now, I get that they're doing this because they want to, but maybe the Thor books weren't selling, and you need to bump it up a little bit. Okay. So, and I've seen some people say, oh, this is great marketing by Marvel. Here's the deal, okay? I disagree with that because smart marketing to me is knowing your core. You create good stories for long-term success. If you go for cheap shock value, it's just a Band-Aid and it's a poor business model. You actually have to have other ways to expand your audience, and new characters would have done that. Thor's sister would have done that, and you're taking a giant dump on that.
Well, not just that, but here's 2 points I want to make. When you want to talk about smart marketing now, Marvel, they doesn't say who did, I didn't watch the segment at all, but Marvel went on The View, which is a very popular women's television program, and made the announcement. And to me, this is what it said to me, it was the fact of like, okay, they know it's not going to be a popular decision, so it's kind of like I said this yesterday when, a politician, no matter if you're Democrat, Republican, whatever, goes to a certain city that's heavily their base, and says
when you announce your candidacy, you're going to do it in a place where you know you're really popular.
Yeah, so they're going to do it on a popular show. Now, but the thing is, though, like I said, you go on comment sections, you go, there's a lot of women who are upset because they're like I said, if you want to make more, it's like this. If you want more strong female characters and create them, don't swap them out. And also, a female listener brought this up yesterday, James, on our page. She goes, he's so hunky. Why would you change it?
I don't understand why you would do that. Now, if you're going to do this, and I'm not saying that you should never do this, why not do a parallel universe book? Why not do what if? Why not do a what if?
But they did that with Storm. Storm was Thor.
Yeah, and they did like the Ultimate. Marvel's Ultimates are kind of like the Earth 2 for Marvel. Because DC has their Earth 2, where there's an African-American Superman.
Yep.
There's all kinds of... Red Tornado, they made Red Tornado into a woman kind of thing. And, it's a parallel universe. But then you've still got your regular universe over here that's kind of untouched and untarnished. I just think you do something like that. I'm not saying that a woman can't be Thor.
No.
Or have the powers of Thor, but don't take away one of your core characters and do this to it.
Well, not just that.
It's just...
It's
your cinematic universe. What are you doing?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what I was going to bring up.
It's
a lot of questions now. What are they going to do for the cinematic universe? What's going to happen? Chris Hemsworth is a big draw because when he's shirtless, women fawn over that.
Exactly.
You can hear it in the theaters.
Not to mention, and I want to point this out as a DC guy that's been frustrated for years now, for a company that gets praised so much for their continuity and everything lining up just the right way, this is exactly the opposite of that. Because now you're going to have your cinematic universe that's going to look, and we'll get into this in a minute, completely different from your comics now.
Yeah.
Your main comics, not this alternate storyline, your main comics line.
And here's an interesting point. Now, I don't think there will be as much backlash as, say, because if you watch the ABC, that was the Marvel Ultimate Universe, Building a Universe.
Yeah, the Building a Universe, yeah.
And in the opening, they said pretty much like, hey, Iron Man, Thor they were seen as tier 3 guys, like tier 2,
right,
tier
which
3
they
guys.
technically were.
If they didn't utilize on Thor, if they didn't make him a main Avenger, they said, okay, he's going to be a tier whatever. If they had, pretty much like I said it this way, if Marvel had the rights to like the X-Men and stuff like that, and they said, okay, we can have the actual Avengers in there, and we don't have to expand on Thor, we can do it later, it wouldn't be as much blowback because, like, okay, I can see Marvel getting away with this because, like, okay, Thor's a tier 2 guy. Nobody knows much about it.
Right, because we know it would have been Spider-Man and Wolverine.
Yeah,
would have been in there. Thor still would have been there. You would say bye-bye to Hawkeye and Black Widow immediately.
Right.
But it would have been Spider-Man and Wolverine. That's pretty obvious. But I just...
But the thing is, though, what a lot of people are tying on, kind of what I'm tying on, is that it's mythology. You're changing something that's in
right.
Norse. Like it's like there's people that worship Norse mythology.
Right. It's not just changing a character that we all love and we're all used to. This is loosely based on actual Norse mythology.
Yeah.
So you can't just change it like that. You got to be more careful with stuff like that. If you want to do alternate stuff, fine. But you can't say there's no more.
Like, for example, like you know, they said, okay, they don't mention how they say, oh, he's not worth Thor. They say Thor's not worthy anymore. They don't mention why.
Yeah, why?
And it's like,
and maybe they'll get to that. I don't know.
Maybe, but if it turns out to where, like, you know, if it was okay, he's not worthy. So what happens? Now here's the cool route they could have done, right? Thor does something wrong. Okay, say he does something along the lines of Jim Gordon in Batman Eternal, where he gets millions of Asgardians killed.
Which isn't totally out of the realm of possibility, because Thor's kind of a loose cannon.
So Odin, the Allfather, sees this, strips all of his powers, gives them to his sister.
Well, look at the way they did in the Thor movie, where he goes to the Frost Giants, and there's a big battle there, and he almost starts this huge war, and he strips him of his power and banishes him to Earth.
And so nobody goes after that power.
There's precedent for that. So, now, I also thought it was interesting, before we move on Thor, what Joss Whedon tweeted out, and he said, a female Thor, ? What the hell makes them think that would be cool?
Yeah, but he put a picture of, I think he was...
It was Katie Sackhoff.
It was Katie Sackhoff.
So, I mean, it was kind of hard to read it, kind of thing. Now, if they were going to go that route, though, I mean, I understand Katie Sackhoff, maybe, because everybody loves her, but... what about, what's the name of that woman in Vikings? What's her name?
I have no idea.
I'm looking at a picture of her right now.
I don't know her name. I don't watch Vikings.
Catherine Winnick.
Oh, okay.
Catherine Winnick, who plays the Shield Maiden on Vikings. I mean, I got to tell you, she would work out quite well as a female Thor. I mean, I know people love Katie Sackhoff for a lot of reasons, but... I gotta tell you, I mean, look at it right now. I'm gonna let you look at the picture. You tell me.
She could pass.
That could pass.
But like I said, my thing is, like I said, I'm not being sexist. It's just, like I said, it's the fact of mythology. Like I said, I know you've had Throg and Thor was like this horse thing, but like I said, it wasn't like Marvel looked at that and said, okay, it's gonna be like a couple issues, but he's gonna be back to being Thor. Here, Marvel is pretty much saying, no, this is it. Thor. This is it.
This is done.
This is done.
So, and it almost has nothing to do with women.
No.
If I'm being totally honest, it almost has nothing to do with women, and everything to do with why are you doing this to a classic character? Doing anything
because we're not saying that it's not like a woman can't wield the power of Thor, because it's already happened in the comics where women have been Thor.
Yeah,
have wielded the power of Thor. We're just saying that in terms of changing the whole mythology, where you have instead of the Odin's son, you have the Odin's daughter, and you're changing mythology. It's a lot of people are going to be ticked off of that. And like I said, it's not like, oh, there's two guys and they're talking about Thor being a woman. No, go on like pages or comment section. There are women that are genuinely pissed about this.
Yeah, this is not just us. And Marvel has been successful for years doing what they've always done. And they're still #1 in sales, and they need to stop chasing Wonder Woman.
And speaking of change of characters, what they did last night, Joe Quesada went on the Colbert Report and said, hey, Sam Wilson's going to be a new Captain America, which I have no problem with.
Which we touched on that
last week
already. We've already given our feelings on that. It makes more sense.
Because he's tied to Cap.
There's precedent there. If you go back and listen to the last episode where we talked about that, we gave you all that information. There's precedent there, so that doesn't bother me nearly as much. Again, my only worry about that is that, when Bucky took over, even though, he was a baddie, he was Winter Soldier before, and that's what started the Civil War.
Right.
I just don't see that. I mean, is he going to be the leader now, or is Stark going to take over?
I think Stark's going to take over.
So, I mean, maybe there would be that. And would Falcon be okay with that? I guess he'd have to be.
Well, yeah, it's a change of the guard.
So, speaking of changing of the guard, it doesn't even stop there, because right when we thought it was all over, right after that announcement...
Literally.
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Like James messaged me, folks. He's like, you're like, I'm all done with my notes, and then... What happens? Yep. This comes out.
And we're talking about, and this might sound familiar, boys and girls, Superior Iron Man.
Yes.
That is no accident.
The trolling continues.
That's right. So basically, Superior Iron Man is going to be headlining, Avengers Now. The creative team is going to be Tom Taylor, who actually did Earth 2 and Injustice Gods Among Us, and Yildiri Sinar, who we just posted a couple weeks ago for Artist Spotlight Sunday on our Facebook page, and he's done work on Supergirl and World's Finest. And they're saying Iron Man's going to get new armor and going to be based out of San Francisco now. But if you looked at the armor...
It looks like Mach 2.
It does look like Mach 2.
Or Mark 2.
Or it's like the Iron Man suit had sex with the Silver Surfer.
Yes.
I mean, it's just... I don't understand how that's new.
And it's always going to be a different suit. Yeah, it won't be made out of iron. It'll be made probably out of like adamantium.
We're thinking adamantium, yeah. Now, they're saying that, don't mistake it. It's not going to be Doc Ock taking on the Iron Man suit like it was in Superior Spider-Man, but... They don't actually say... Now, they could easily have come out and put fans' minds at ease and say, don't worry, it's still Tony Stark. He's just going to have a different suit. They did not give us that information.
No. There was... Remember, in the last week's thing, the Avengers thing, it looked like, what did they say, Havoc? It looked like Havoc was in like an Iron Man-esque suit kind of thing.
Yeah, so there's not...
And the thing is, this whole thing with Superior Iron Man, the line is going to be pretty much built around... Pretty much the extremist thing, like everybody can get the extremist, but some people don't like it because it does certain things, and it's like it's pretty much like the inventor pretty much had the good idea that went awry kind of thing. So I mean, luckily it's not the whole Doc Ock thing with Superior Spider-Man.
But we don't know what they're going to do.
But we don't know what they're really going to do. We just know an outline of a plot.
And if Stark was going to take over, if that was going to be the thing that kind of made it okay, if it's not Stark. You're not going to have this guy taking over, whoever it is, probably. So then who leads the Avengers? Then that's the other problem.
Yeah.
Because Hulk can't lead.
Yeah.
I love Hulk, but he's not a lead guy.
Hulk, lead!
So, I mean, that's just not going to happen. They're not going to let Falcon take over. I mean, it's just, to me, it's too much. It's too much change all at the same time. Why on earth? Now, I'll be honest. I had Avengers. I dropped it several weeks ago because it's awful.
Yeah, Avengers World, right?
All of them. All of the Avengers. I dropped Avengers World. I dropped Avengers. I dropped them all because they were bad. They had just gotten bad. It was boring. It was stale. And I didn't do the tie-ins for Original Sin either because I just didn't like it.
Now, here's the thing, though. This is a question I'm going to bring because I know a lot of people can bring up this question, people who are listening to this podcast. So, if you dropped Avengers World because it was slow and you didn't like it, then why are you complaining about the new Avengers, per se? Like, what they're doing with the new
Avengers World was different. They had different characters in there other than your main Avengers cast. The reason I dropped it was, first of all, to me, it took them too long to get to the main point. And second of all, I wasn't interested enough in the characters that they had in there to keep the book.
Yeah.
So that's why I dropped it. I dropped regular Avengers because I didn't feel like it was written well. The art had kind of taken a slip for me.
Yeah.
It had gone a little bit downhill. I wasn't interested in where they were going with that either. So it wasn't one of those books I felt like I needed to pick up and read. And I think that if you have something like that in your polls, there's so much good stuff out there right now. And let's face it, kids, money's tight. Yeah. So why would you hang on to a bad book just because you love the Avengers? I just decided not to do that. Now, before we move on, I think that we should because we always pride ourselves.
Right.
We don't want to complain about stuff that we don't read.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as much as we hate this idea, all of it, except for the Captain America thing, we're kind of okay with that. Let's make a vow right now on this show.
Episode 20.
That we will pick one. We'll each pick one of these books. We'll get the first issue, and we'll give it a shot.
I will take Thor.
All right, I'll take Iron Man.
Okay.
I'll take Iron Man. Because I think Captain America, I don't know how much different that's going to be. I think that we should go for something that's really going to be different and out in left field.
And like I said, you know, the whole thing going back to Thor. Who knows? Maybe when I read it,
it could
be
right.
totally awesome.
It could be great. We're not sitting up here on our high horse and saying that this is going to be awful before it even comes out, because I don't like it when people do that.
But you have to understand our total shock and kind of.
And nobody saw this coming.
That's the reason why, because it's such a totally out of left field move. That's why we're saying the stuff we did on the show and earlier in the segment, because it was just so out of left field. I mean, we woke up literally yesterday morning and saw this, and we're like, whoa.
Don't mistake what we're saying for us saying that this is going to be a bad book. What we're saying is that this is a bad decision.
Yeah.
That's totally different. It's a huge change, and it just didn't seem necessary to do not only this, but have this much change at once. Because
there were, like, you know, there are certain things. Like I was reading some statistics, and about comic book readers in general, and and I can see why Marvel. I even said this when I my first response to it on the page. Viewers who are like they read a lot of like female centric protagonists,
right?
And that's like 60% of them were women.
Now I will say that Bob. I was talking to Bob about this at Fantasy Escape yesterday, and he told me 6 people have already added Thor to their polls.
Really?
In one day. So that's where they're at with that. Now, you just have to understand that just because we think that this is a bad move doesn't mean it won't work out. But it could be a huge mistake.
Like I said, don't take what we're saying as hate or anything else. It's like I said, this move is it's such a move out of left field.
We can question the move as a whole without saying, like I can't stand it when people say that a movie's going to suck before you even see a trailer. Yeah. Like that's my argument for Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice. You haven't even seen a trailer yet. Yeah. And you think the movie's going to suck just because you know pretty much whatever's being written on the internet about it? No, you don't know. So we don't know what this is going to look like. But we do know what's going on with Marvel and the Jack Kirby heirs situation that's actually going all the way up to the Supreme Court.
And let me just say this. This is a very, very sad thing that's going on.
It's terrible.
It's terrible. So on Monday, Marvel asked the Supreme Court to deny a petition from the heirs of Jack Kirby. You know, he did Captain America, Avengers, X-Men. Actually, my mom's cousin is friends with one of the other co-creator of Captain America, which is pretty cool.
Yes, that's very cool. Jack Kirby. Now, Stan Lee's always gotten the main.
He's the spotlight.
He's the face. But let's not forget Kirby was there too.
But Kirby was also literally he was like there was 2 pillars that made the foundation of Marvel. It was Stan Lee and it was Jack Kirby.
And I believe he passed away in 1994. Yeah. So excuse Jack Kirby for being dead, and not being able to be seen, and people know about his work.
So the petition that the heirs of Jack Kirby sent to the Supreme Court. It contended that they had the right in 2009 to issue 45 termination notices to Marvel and others like Fox, Sony, Universal, Paramount on the artist characters under the provisions of the 1976 Copyright Act. So pretty much it was just like, while he was... Now they say while Kirby was publicly identified with much of the comic company's profile period, along with Stan Lee, Marvel has won before in the courts under the understanding that the 262 works in question in this case, in general, from the comic legend between... They were created between 1958 and 1963 were done under a work-for-hire deal, right. So the heirs don't have any rights for a termination.
Now, you have to understand that back in this time, there wasn't necessarily contracts.
A lot of guys were coming home from war and they would work for hire.
This was a lot of, okay, I'll do this, like almost kind of like mercenary type stuff where you're going in, you're doing the job, and then you kind of get out kind of thing.
Now, it's important to announce that Marvel also initially waived any response to the Supreme Court petition as well.
Right. I mean, they've been losing, the Kirby family's been losing a lot of appeals in the lower courts, but they always keep actually getting things back, and actually the appeals court of the heirs' claims against Marvel and Disney were reaffirmed by a lower court ruling in 2011 on the work-for-hire thing that we were just talking about. Now, here's what I thought was interesting about the story, too, is that Screen Actors Guild and AFTRA are actually getting involved in this, and they actually submitted an amicus brief, and I'm going to kind of paraphrase this, and that's the Screen Actors Guild and the Writers Guild for films. And they actually said that in doing so, that these rulings, that in doing so, it jeopardizes the statutory termination rights that many guild members may possess in their works they created. According to the guilds and their members, have a significant interest in the outcome of this critically important case. So basically what it's saying is, if I created something while I'm working for a studio, the studio can claim that as their property, not mine, even though I did the work.
Yeah.
So this could set a dangerous precedent, not just for Marvel, but all across films, television, even DC. I mean, this could really set a ripple effect.
Even I'll say this, even for like I went to film school, and this can reach all the way down to students who are in film school, because when you make movies, you're like, okay, I'm directing this film, whatever. That even if the script was written by whoever, yourself, the final product is property of the university you attend.
Right.
So, I mean, granted, so it's like, people are like, yeah, you can buy the rights back for like, you only have to pay like a couple bucks, but it's like, yeah, you can buy the rights back. It's like, I've never signed anything saying like no contract saying,
right, and
hey, we get your shit if you make it.
And that's different. If you're signing a contract and in the contract it says all works created under this umbrella will be property of Marvel and Disney Corporation, yada yada yada, then that's on you.
Yeah.
You signed it, you agreed to it, whether you like it or not, this is what's going to happen. What I think is unfortunate here, and I know this happened with the Siegel family in DC with the rights to Superman, that got worked out.
Right.
Luckily that got worked out. And I'm not saying that if this does not turn out in the Kirby's family's favor, that this will set off ripple effects. I'm just saying it can. What I think is tragic here is that Marvel was built on the blood, sweat, and tears of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and now, several years later, you're not going to give this family and this guy not only the acknowledgement that he deserves, but the financial support to the family that helped create your gigantic universe.
And here's the thing, too, and you brought up a great point last night when we were talking on the phone about this. You said, can you imagine if they ever did this to Stan Lee? They would never do it because he's too much in the limelight.
Yeah, he's the face because he's around. Jack Kirby died 20 years ago. It's not his fault he's not here to be... Think about it. Think about if you could go to a con.
Right.
And meet Jack Kirby and Stan Lee at the same time.
That would be a wish come true.
Send chills up your spine.
Yeah.
It's ridiculously cool how much cool that would be. But and you see, I think I was watching, I think it was Hollywood Treasures. And they had found actual original panels from Stan Lee and Jack Kirby,
right,
that they were trying to get value of, and they showed him in Stan Lee, and Stan Lee was floored. It was like an emotional moment for him to see this, first Fantastic Four, the actual panels with written notes from them in the panels.
Oh, yeah.
Before this became a book. So this is how important Jack Kirby is. And the fact that Marvel, whom's making money hand over fist, can't come up with some sort of an agreement, and maybe the family's asking for too much. We don't know, because we don't know the actual facts.
We're not in the
case.
courtroom. Yeah, we don't know the whole facts. We're not in the courtroom.
Maybe the family is being greedy, so I'll preface what I'm saying with that. I don't know. But I don't understand why you can't honor this family and work something out and let them get what Jack Kirby deserves.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, like I said, it's a sad thing. I mean, the fact this is going to the Supreme Court, I think, is sad.
It shouldn't have to.
It shouldn't have to go to the Supreme Court.
It's ridiculous. It should not have to get to. Sit in a room and figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be some.
I mean,
they almost came to an agreement a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of fell apart.
If Marvel can go to like Fox and say, "Hey, can we use Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch?" and Fox says yes.
Yeah. You can work that out.
Why can't you be like, okay, for example, Marvel will be like, okay, we'll give you the rights to these characters you created, however, you cannot make any more comics.
That's fair.
Based on
that's fair.
These comics. We'll give you these, but you can't make them.
We'll give you these based on what he created, but this is where we cut it, right here. You could even say, here's a solution. You could even say, okay, we'll give you royalties for everything up to this point, but as of 2014, everything we make is our property.
Right.
Ours. Everything up to this point.
Yes. And you even said, on the phone last night when we were talking, on certain, Superman toys and stuff, it says, what was it, property of the Siegel family.
Yeah, they actually, and
have that for like the Marvel toys.
Batman Works always have the character of Batman was created by Bob Kane.
Yep.
I mean, they have that stuff on there already. So, I mean, I give them at least that. I don't see that on, and maybe I'm missing it. Maybe I'm not seeing it and it's there. But, I mean, you got to give the guy, I mean, you deserve financial compensation for something that you created. Right. I'm a firm believer in that. But give the guy something. Give this family something. And I realize that this isn't a new thing. This kind of stuff has happened in the past.
Oh, yeah. This has been going on for years.
But, I mean, it's time to get it resolved. And the fact that we even have to bother the Supreme Court with this is ridiculous to me.
Yep. And, but as the news from Marvel is the bad blood or the bad press just keeps piling on for Marvel, there's another story that came out. And we promise it's not going to be an all Marvel's news segment. We have more other news stories.
There's plenty more.
But this is just that this week, and even before Comic-Con, there was just Marvel does this. Marvel.
And it's all been bad, too. Yeah. That's the crazy thing.
Well, I was going to say bad, but negative. It's been negative.
Negative, yeah. Okay, let's say negative. Yeah, let's do that.
But Roberto Orci, who was scheduled to co-write The Amazing Spider-Man 3 and the Venom movie for Sony, he revealed he's left the franchise and isn't quite sure what's happening moving ahead. So he's left the Amazing Spider-Man franchise.
He's actually not only said that, but he said he doesn't even know what their plans are and that he's not officially involved.
Orci said, quote, "I'm not officially involved in Amazing Spider-Man 3. I don't know what their plans are for that franchise. I don't ever want to say never, but we have to figure out what their scheduling is in terms of when they want each movie. I mean, they came up with a schedule, but it's like, okay, you set a schedule, but that doesn't mean that filming won't take this long or be this short.
Exactly, and I think that this kind of all started because didn't he have some sort of a falling out with Alex Kurtzman, who was kind of like his right-hand guy?
Yeah, and Kurtzman's taking over for the writing.
And I mean, they had the brain trust, didn't they? I think it was Jeff Pinkner, it was Ed Solomon, Drew Goddard, and Mark Webb that were all kind of the guys that were spinning the web, so to speak.
And I mean, again, the first time when I saw this was like, okay, because he was going to go work on Star Trek 3. But according to Bleeding Cool, as of yesterday, he's signed on to be the executive producer and help develop the story of the new Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie.
Which is interesting because now here's the question: did he leave the Spider-Man franchise to work on the Power Rangers franchise?
I think so, because and here's why. Because you look at who they just got they just signed Ashley Miller and Zach Stenson,
which is a fantastic get.
The people who wrote X-Men First Class.
You could not get a more perfect writing team for this. And I'm not even that big of a Power Rangers fan, but when I saw that, I told you, we were texting back and forth, I said, when I saw that, I'm like, now I'm interested.
Well, I mean, I'm a huge Power Ranger fan. I grew up on a Power Ranger. My whole life, I wanted to be the Red Power Ranger. I even wrote a letter to Fox, at the local Fox station, because at the back of the day, I'm like, oh, we have a local Fox TV station. That's why they make Power Rangers.
See, that's our age gaps talking there. Because I was a little older when Power Rangers came out, and I think that's why I didn't gravitate to it as much.
Yeah.
Because you were still younger, because my cousins were into it too.
Yeah.
So I totally get it. And I'm not saying I hate it. I am interested. And especially if they're going to do it this way.
Yeah.
I'm very interested.
Yep. But that's very awesome. There was a lot of, even though Spider-Man has made, the Amazing Spider-Man 2 has made like $700 million, like 500, maybe like what, $500 million domestically or worldwide.
It made a ton of money.
It made like $700 million worldwide. I think it just crossed that mark.
So did Transformers, though.
Yeah.
So.
But that's the thing, is a lot of people were like down on it. Even though they saw it, even though it made a lot of money, people were like, oh, the Amazing Spider-Man series quite isn't what we expected.
I don't mean to keep harping on this, because it seems like I do every time we talk about Spider-Man. But again, this is another example of what does this say about a character that is one of the most popular characters in comic book history, that nobody seems to want to stay with this for some reason.
Yeah.
It's like you this is something you should be excited about. You shouldn't want to leave. I don't care if it's for Power Rangers or Star Trek, whatever. You should never want to leave Spider-Man. It's friggin' Spider-Man. What is going on?
I have no idea.
And does this bring change now? is this what's going to happen? Is this what it's going to take to bring change? Is it going to? First of all, it's going to delay everything. I don't care what anybody says. It's going to delay everything, and maybe this brings change. And we have plenty of change going on with the Constantine series now.
Let me just say this: people right now are saying, "Woo! No more Marvel news. We're done."
Exactly. Let's take a deep breath. Let's stop off at the DC station for a little bit,
Let's
and then we'll move on.
And we'll move on.
But I was actually pretty happy about this, believe it or not, because the character of Liv has been replaced on the Constantine series with a character that fans of the series will know is Zed. Now, Lucy Griffin was the co-star in the pilot. Now it's going to be telenovela actress Angelica Celea.
An interesting point in all this, though, was the fact that, like, you've brought up, because people around Constantine just drop like flies around him.
Yeah, if you know the character, they don't necessarily always stick around. And before we get into the meat of the story, let's not forget now that this Liv character that was played by Lucy Griffiths was actually created for the series.
Yeah.
There's no canon.
There's no
here.
canon for her.
Now we have canon because you know that if you're a fan of the Constantine series, she's kind of the perfect kind of yin to the yang of Constantine because Constantine's one of the biggest bullshit artists in comic book history.
Plus the fact, too, is as you knew it was planned. You knew she was. My guess is that Liv is only going to be on the pilot.
Yeah, that's my guess, too.
Because,
and I don't think we'll see...
Because Goyer came out and said, hey, we're not going to have to reshoot anything.
Right.
You know, the pilot's it's finished. So it's like, okay, they planned on this. They planned on saying, okay, we're only going to have her for like one episode, and that's it.
Right, and now they're going to bring in a character that's been involved with the series for 25 years. I mean, she was introduced in Hellblazer number 4, and she's kind of a psychic that helps Constantine find his missing niece, and of course... No surprise here, with Constantine, they become romantically involved, so...
And speaking of being romantically involved, they also said, he's going to be bisexual.
Well, they're saying that they're not really going to focus on...
No, because it wasn't a main focus in the movie. They said you might see him get out of bed with another guy.
It happened a couple of times. I mean, there was always that whole thing with Nick Necro and Zatanna, where there was always that little wonder, and in other parts of the Hellblazer series as well. And then there's the whole smoking thing.
Oh my God, yeah. Which
now,
I'm actually kind of happy for in a sense.
There's been
which I'm really happy for.
There's been a lot of infuriating things about that, saying and first of all, if you say that you're not going to watch this just because he's not a smoker, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. The character is too good.
Yeah.
I realize it's a big part of the character, but you have to understand that, and this is not just an NBC thing either.
No.
These are broadcast standards, people.
Yeah.
This is something that's been established. You just cannot do. Now, they said he is going to be a smoker.
Yep.
They've already said, they were talking to the showrunners.
I know somebody, sorry to cut you off, but I know somebody said that they watched the pilot. They're like an insider. They rewatched the pilot already. And it's like opens up with him like putting a cigarette out.
Yeah.
So, because that's a big thing, because like one of the biggest storylines in the Hellblazer comics was him getting cancer.
Right, exactly. I mean, the Dangerous Habits, I think, was the storyline where he makes kind of the deal with the devil to cure his cancer and then screws him over kind of thing. So, I understand why it's important, so don't get me wrong, but at the same time, you have to understand that there are broadcast standards. And then they actually kind of deflected it and said, hey, if you really want to push us about this, you might want to ask the network about it. But they said they're not shying away from it. They're not glorifying it. People have said, maybe you should wear a patch, eat the gum. And they say, it's stupid. It's like, he's a smoker. And they said, we're on network television, so we're limited to what we can do and what we can show. And they said, but within the framework, we're going to be very honest to the character. I believe Constantine has a very healthy sex life. You're not going to see that on TV either.
Right.
So... It's too good of a character, and they really want to focus on the dark occult universe that DC has. I mean, they're going to bring the Spectre onto the show. Jim Corrigan, you're going to hear that, and the Dr. Fate helmet is actually part of the show. I mean, I know that they eventually want to probably bring in Zatanna and some of the other maybe Deadman, some of the other Justice League Guard characters. Maybe Spawn makes an appearance.
I would love Spawn.
It's
I
too
want
good.
a good Spawn.
If you know anything about the character, by the way, the show premieres Friday, October 24th on NBC. We're going to find out more on Comic-Con. They're actually going to screen the pilot on Wednesday for Comic-Con. But if you know anything about the character, he's just such a bullshitter and a smart ass. And it's just such a great character. So to dismiss it just because he can't be just because you don't see a cigarette hanging out of his mouth and smoke blowing everywhere is absolutely ridiculous. And you know what? don't watch the show because you don't deserve to be a fan. I'm sorry.
And speaking of being a fan, one of our friend of the show and fan of the show, we're fans of hers as well, Nancy A. Collins. I'm telling you what, James, I'm reading all these releases for October, and I'm getting so excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy month.
So October is going to mark the release of Vampirella Fairy Tales #1, and that's going to be an anthology series held together by a unique, cohesive framework. It's going to feature the creative talent. This is a very talented...
I mean, listen to this list. It's ridiculous.
It's talented. Gail Simone, Stephen R. Bissett, Elmo Ekelabuz, Renilson Freire, Devin Grayson, who did Batman Gotham Knights, he did Nightwing and did Titan, Jack Jansen, Joe R. Lansdale,
John Shirley, who did the original screenwriting for The
Elaine
Crow.
Lee, Stuart Moore, Steve Niles, John Shirley. He did the Crow film. He wrote The Crow. Dennis St. John and Eric Troutman. Holy shit! What an arsenal!
I mean, if you're going to celebrate a 45th anniversary, that is the way to do it.
Bravo, Nancy, for going all out, girl.
And Nancy,
bravo!
I love Nancy's quote here where she says she's the ghostest with the mostest. I love that.
Yes.
And it's actually going back to the old black and white horror mags that we used to do for Vampirella, which I think is very cool. By the way, Nancy gave us this information personally, which we really appreciate. Her messaging us with that. But, I mean, I know you can't see it because it's a podcast, but we'll, of course, have the story up for you. I mean, look at the art for Fairy Tales #1.
It looks phenomenal.
It's fantastic art. And, I mean, even you go through what some of the storylines are going to be. Again, we'll post this. We could go on forever about this, and we'll post the story so you can get more in-depth on what the storylines are going to be. But it's going to be a different writer for each story. And Nancy's going to work on #1 with Devin Grayson and John Shirley and an all-star cast, and then Gail Simone will get her shot.
Right.
Nancy's going to be involved in all this because she is Vampirella. Without Nancy Collins, Vampirella doesn't exist, or at least shouldn't exist.
Yes.
Because she has to be the spearhead for this whole thing. And I got to tell you, it's very interesting because they're going to go with these different tales. As a matter of fact, in the debut, the Vampirella is actually surprised when she discovers herself married to an infamous wife killer named Bluebeard's Blood, which is actually by Grayson, by the way. And then she finds herself the belle and the bette of the ball and Cinderella. So, I mean, come on.
You're mixing so many great worlds together. It's going to be fantastic.
And normally you'd be like, why are you doing that? Well, when you do it like this, and you do it right, it can be so cool.
Dynamite Comics, this is going to... Oh, my God. Imagine if I'm
This is their Batman.
Yes.
This is their Batman.
If I'm the head of Dynamite Comics right now, I am grinning ear to ear right now.
Vampirella has been the Batman, and I'm not saying like directly, but as far as popularity...
And no pun intended when you say bat.
Yeah, exactly. This has been their, I guess, flagship issue.
Yeah.
They're a torch runner for years now, and they're doing a fantastic job, not just honoring the anniversary. They're kicking it up.
Vampirella is Dynamite's LeBron James.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the little engine that could of Dynamite Comics, and I just think that this is going to be... I know that once they get to the end, it's going to be one of those things where like, why can't this just keep going?
Oh, my God.
I'm going to wish it's going to keep going. I'm not going to want it to end. And I know Nancy's going to keep us posted with all kinds of information as it comes on Vampire Fairy Tales. I can't wait.
And I want to buy it, and I want... Because she's going to be at Comic-Con, Tower Comic-Con.
Yes.
I want to have her sign it.
Absolutely. I got to get her signature on that #1 issue.
Yes.
It's got to happen.
It's got to happen.
Plus, Gail Simone... Maybe we need to get Gail Simone at Tidewater Comic-Con.
Hey, there's going to be tons of people there, so the
Let's
possibilities for interviews are going to be endless.
Let's make that happen. So, Mike, if you're listening to the show, we know you are. Gail Simone's on line 1.
Well, hey, Nancy, if you're listening.
Yeah, Nancy, you got...
I mean, she's our friend, so it's just like, hey, we know her. So, Nancy...
You got connections? Let's make this happen.
But anyways, our final nerd news story this week. Oh my God, I gotta take a quick breath because, I mean, this is just so many stories, and you can see why we cut out Trailer Talk this week.
Oh, yeah.
So many stories. The final story is Lock and Key, the film, has finally landed a new writer for the movie, Albert Torres. Now, this is according to Hollywood Reporter. Torres, who wrote the Henry Poole is here, and he's scripted Universal film based on the graphical novel by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez. He also reportedly working on an untitled Ben 10 movie as well.
Right, which is kind of like, you couldn't have a more opposite thing to work on.
Yeah,
than Lock and
because
Key.
now for those of you who don't know what Lock and Key is, like I want to get the books. I want to read it.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
I
I
seriously
can't wait to start this.
I think I might go next week and pick them up if I can find them. And now it was originally going to be adapted to a TV series on
Fox was going to do it, right? Yeah.
But thank God, because Fox is known for canceling things way too
Not
early.
only that, but it was Robert Orkey and Alex Kurtzman that were involved, and they kind of have a falling out,
Yeah.
so that's not going to work out.
But they're saying that the Lock and Key will get multiple films. Now, Lock and Key, the plot is during the American Revolution, a group of rebels hiding beneath what is the future Key House discover pretty much a portal to another dimension, and there's demons, and it's pretty much hell.
It's like the plane. Don't they call it like the plane of Langs or
Yeah.
something like that?
The plane of Lang, and it's filled with demons, and they can just possess pretty much anybody who can see or touch them.
Yeah.
And when they attempt to come back to the real world, they collapse into lumps of, quote, whispering iron, in which young Benjamin Locke, he forges keys, magical keys, including the Omega Key, which seals the entrance to the dimension.
Yeah, these are like magic keys.
It's pretty much like Lord of the Rings, but with keys and better.
Right, and it actually evolves to, I think, 1988 and in Maine, and then some stupid kid ends up getting possessed,
Yep.
and that's how it all starts to come
And
out.
it's just, I'm just like, I gotta read this now.
Yeah, it's a very especially basing it from the American Revolution. That's one of the reasons I like Sleepy Hollow so much on Fox, because it's based on the American Revolution and the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. It's a very interesting story. So when I found out about Lock and Key, my first thought was, how do I get my hands on this now? And then I realized it's been out for years. I'm like, where have I been on this? So IDW Publishing has done a great job with this.
I've heard a lot about it, but I'm like, I can never find it. Like, I want to read it, but it's one of those things where like I can never find it.
And partially that's a good thing, because that means it sells really well, so you can't find it anywhere. But I will track it down somewhere.
Yes.
If I have to, I just want to read it. Now, if I can buy it at a local shop, I will. But I am reading this one way or another.
What's interesting is like when people go see the Lock and Key movie, like they're gonna not realize that it was a comic. Like there's certain books.
A lot of people aren't going to realize that about a lot of things that are coming out. Actually,
Yeah.
Wait till Winterworld comes out on Xbox Live. People aren't going to realize that was based on the comic either.
Yeah. I mean, that's our gigantic amount of nerd news. My throat hurts.
We're going to go take a nap.
Talking so much.
Actually.
Yes, we're gonna cuddle. Actually.
You want to be the spooner or the spoonee, though?
I don't know. Whatever makes you cry less at night.
We'll work that out.
Then I'll do whatever makes you cry less.
Less
at night.
nightmares. Okay.
Less nightmares we'll go for. But oh god. But anyways, coming up.
It's gonna be different without Cody here. He's usually the teddy bear of this whole thing.
I know he's like that big cuddly pillow.
Kind of like the exact opposite of what social media is, which is going to be our
full
main
of trolls
topic.
and hate and fuck yous.
Our main topic, all about how social media is affecting and has affected the comic book industry, is coming up next on Down and Nerdy. You've heard us say it a million times. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/downandnerdy. So we do love social media, but sometimes it can cause a little bit of a firestorm.
Yeah, or for those of us who are adults and use adult language, shitstorm.
Yes, very much so. Well, I figured firestorm, bring
I see what you did there,
Yeah.
but overall, that's when the trolls come out to play,
Yes,
and
exactly.
people tell you to go fuck yourself, and they go on a video of like a 2-year-old singing Frozen, and they're like, you suck.
So we're going to talk about how social media has affected the comic book industry as a whole for our main topic. Now, let's just get out of the way that social media kind of allows us to exist right now.
Social media,
yes,
it allows us to exist, it allows us to get new followers, and it
allows you to hear the show.
Even if you don't podcast, it allows people like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, allows people to give them a voice that they don't have. We drove by people on the side of the walk with the big blowhorn or a megaphone saying whatever, but social media allows us to branch out worldwide. Because of social media, we are listened to pretty much on every continent except for that little shack in Antarctica.
Yes, which we'll work on that, by the way.
We'll work on that.
That's going to happen eventually. But
I did send a message in a bottle, but I think because Antarctica, I might have gotten stuck in the ice.
Yeah, might have to let that go.
Yeah.
So,
Haha, Frozen reference.
I'm glad you got
Yeah,
that.
full
Thank
circle,
you.
bitches.
Thank you. So, while we might say a few bad things about social media when we discuss this, we're going to just let you know that we realize it allows us to exist. But, this is for the point of our discussion. We need to talk about these things. Now, I want to start it off by kind of saying that not only did you say it allows everybody to have their voice, but it allows us to not only get information about the things that we love as nerds quicker, but it allows us to react immediately
Yes.
to what we see. Now, sometimes it's a good thing, and sometimes it's a bad thing.
And the good thing being like, hey, Weird Al has, I said on a post a couple days ago, I said, hey, every day this week he's releasing a new music video for one of his new songs off of his new album, Mandatory Fun, which not going to lie, probably will be his best CD since Poodle Hat.
Oh, definitely.
And and in the bad terms, it's gonna be a touchy subject, but the whole Superman DC with the kid statue.
Yeah, we're gonna tread very lightly here because obviously what that child went through and what the family went through is
horrible.
Horrific. It should never happen to anyone. But there was a huge backlash because, and this happens a lot, and I think that we're going to use this as a broad term as well. I think in social media, a lot of people are guilty sometimes of seeing a headline and commenting immediately on the headline without actually reading the story.
Right, and the thing is with the story, it's like they erected the statue of this 5-year-old child who sadly was abused. He was starved to death, and they said he was such a big Superman fan, and we made a statue of him, with the S on the logo, and DC was like, well, wait a minute, that's our property, you can't use it.
Well, they actually asked for permission.
And they asked for
the
permission.
family did ask DC for permission.
Yes, and DC said no, and DC, I can understand why they did it at first, because, if the Superman logo means hope, and what I'm about to say, I hope it doesn't rub anybody the wrong way, but it's got to be said. The Superman logo means hope. And when you talk about abuse, it's a tough thing for
Definitely.
a logo to represent.
And that's what could end up happening eventually, because if you do it for one, you've got to do it for
Right.
everyone. And I know that maybe that doesn't make it right, but then all of a sudden your logo gets associated with a certain thing, just like the pink ribbon is associated with breast cancer. And breast cancer is a horrible thing, but they have a symbol for that now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there is a symbol somewhere for child abuse. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm sure there is one. But you have to be very careful when you're talking about an entity that's already established, and if a certain thing gets associated with that act.
And the thing is with that is a lot of people were fast to say, fuck DC, I'm never buying a DC comic.
Boycott DC.
Boycott DC, how could you let this happen? But the thing is, too, is if they, I think his name started with a J. I don't know his name, but I believe it started with a J.
It did.
And I think it would have meant more, because it's like, okay, this is like a small town. People are like, okay, he was like our Superman. If you had his initial,
J.
if you had the J on the
use
on
the design,
shield,
but make it a J.
Yeah.
I think that would have been.
I think it would have been a lot more. I think it would have been a lot more personal.
I agree, and I understand why you would want to do it because he was a huge Superman fan. And now let's not say that all of DC rejected this either. Now, eventually, DC did end up reversing their stance, but basically, there was a guy for DC that put out a statement on this. DC has never actually officially commented on this at all, but there was somebody that worked at DC that did let out a statement. I can't remember who it was. He was a director of something.
Right.
Basically, I think this was the guy that was responsible for the denial. Now, you have to understand that this was being taken under advisement.
Yes.
It wasn't necessarily a done deal that this was, we're not doing this.
Right.
It was going through a review process, because anytime you ask for a trademarked item to be used, there's a review process that happens. You need to make sure it's a legitimate request.
Yep.
You're not just doing it for just anything. And they want to make sure that it was a just cause. Now, you have to do your homework on something like this, because apparently the request, they weren't sure the request came from the actual family either.
Right.
So they were trying to work that out before they made their decision. And you have to understand, too, that when people write headlines, you can write whatever you want in a headline.
Right.
You can take whatever bits and pieces you want. It's the same thing with interviews. You interview somebody, and it can get twisted.
You take one or two little words, you piece them together. Going back to what I said before, where I said about the whole Superman logo being used for a sign of abuse. In a sense, it means hope, but to be used in that kind of context. And like I said, when people say, "Oh, fuck DC and boycott DC," people forget that. DC, I believe it was the St. Jude's Hospital or some hospital for cancer research, where they actually made these custom containers with logos with Wonder Woman logo on them, Batman logo, Superman, Green Lantern, and they were used to put chemotherapy packs into, and so it made it easier for children who are going through chemotherapy, where nurses can say, "Hey," instead of attaching a clear bag and have chemotherapy, chemo written on it, it says, "Hey, this is your superpower juice. It's going to make you stronger." And that's what they used. That's what the nurses said. "Hey, this is your medicine. It's going to make you strong." And it had the Green Lantern logo on it.
And DC also did the Bat Kid, where they transformed San Francisco into Gotham,
and they're gonna make they're trying to make a
documentary,
documentary,
which is gonna be awesome. I can't wait to see that. But, you can't say that they do no good.
Yeah, and the thing is too is on social media is it's sad how one decision can erase a whole many years of good.
Right, and they've got the initiative that they do for hunger. I can't remember the name of the initiative off the top of my head.
They do a lot. The bottom line is they do a lot. And
Heroes for Hunger or something like that.
And the bottom line is, folks, is that they do a lot for charities and for organizations.
And as does Marvel. We don't want to gloss over that.
And as does Marvel and other comic distributors and film distributors. But there's just you got to understand that there are certain issues that are hard to put a label on and put a logo on.
And again, once you're going to social media, and I think that this is true for a lot of things, you see a headline and you're commenting on the you can comment immediately, you can tweet immediately, and you comment on the headline, and not everybody clicks on the story and actually reads the story. Now, maybe that doesn't change your opinion, maybe it does, but you shouldn't just comment on a headline alone.
Another story, and we don't mean to bring up all these controversial stories at all, but I mean, this is what gets most of the social media riled up. It was a story that came out, I believe, a couple days ago or yesterday about a woman who supposedly left her kids. That's the summertime. Don't leave your kids and dogs in the car.
No,
bring
absolutely
them inside. I went to Walmart last night and it had a sign that said, "Hey, look back, make sure you got everything, your kids and everything." And it had people who broke the window, and the headline read, "People save kids from hot car," when in reality, a day later, a retraction was printed out and written saying, "Yeah, the kids weren't in the car; they were in the salon with their mother. The reason why they broke the window was because she left her keys in the car and they were locked in. And the reason they left her keys in the car, and the keys were locked in the car, so that's why I had to break the window. It wasn't because of the kids left in the car; it was because of her keys." And when you read the article, it's like, the person that was responsible for saying, "Oh, she left her kids in the car," it was one person. It was an quote unquote eyewitness.
It's funny too because
who hasn't come out, by the way, who hasn't come forward and said anything.
It's funny too because the retractions typically get buried.
Yeah,
which is funny because, and I think that it was the same for the DC story that we were just talking about, where the story of them denying it went viral. But the retraction of them now reversing their stance and allowing it to happen, where has that been?
And that's where social media is good, because it brings change. You can, say, if enough people saying negative things about something, then it'll get changed.
Well, look at the Hulk storyline alone.
That I'm reading, where where, hey, he's mentally challenged, and then people complained and, saying, well, it doesn't make any sense, yada, yada. And then what happens in issue number 3? Okay, he gets the extremist put into his brain is restored.
Right, so in that instance, it kind of works out. It also allows, and I think we're going to go a little lighter here. It's not going to be as serious.
No.
It's not going to be a serious discussion.
But we had to get the heavy stuff out of the way.
Yeah, you got to get that out because it needs to be discussed. But one of the things I do love about how social media has affected the comics is companies like IDW and Dynamite, Dark Horse, Image. It allows them to get their product out there and get their good books out there. Give people more information. Like, let's take Walking Dead, for example. Now, you probably love the Walking Dead show. There's been plenty of comics. So now if somebody goes on Facebook and types in Walking Dead, they can find out that, hey, there's a Walking Dead comic. And now all of a sudden an independent publisher, Walking Dead is by far and away #1 in sales for graphic novels.
Same thing with Game of Thrones. Nobody knew there were Game of Thrones. I highly doubt that there was a lot of people that knew about
There's people that might still
the Game of Thrones books.
Yeah.
There were books before there was a show. And that's the thing, is a lot of stuff that's put on television, whether it's HBO or cable or whatever, or network, they're mostly like 95% based off of books.
Yeah, exactly. And what's good is that social media allows you to do a little bit more homework. And actually, this is where comment sections can come in handy, because you could see somebody saying in a comment, well, I wish they had stuck more to the book version of the Red Wedding.
Yeah.
Or they talk more about the Purple Wedding. And then people could say, hold on a second, what are they talking about?
Or, for example, say for instance, if they said, like a smaller publisher, I doubt Marvel DC would do this, but it would be like, hey, who would you like to see in this next movie based on a comic book? Or who's your favorite character?
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe it'll true to them either getting their own comic or, getting more of a feature in the film. For example, like years ago, I never thought Nightcrawler would get his own comic book.
Right.
And he has his own comic book, and it has gotten. I'll say it right now, it has gotten a lot better. Like
so you stuck with it.
I stuck with it. Mike told me to stick with it, so I decided to do that, and it's worked out. But I mean, there's a lot of comics like you never thought that would get their characters. Like I said, like spinoffs. It's phenomenal.
And you can use, and companies can use social media to gauge interest in certain characters. Like Deadpool is another good example, where you look at Marvel, probably never really thought Deadpool would take off the way he has, but then you look at the likes that the Deadpool character page has on Facebook, and internet memes that pop up on social media, and that's how they go viral, people. You see them on Facebook, you see them on Twitter, Instagram, that's how these memes go viral. So you do stuff like that, and all of a sudden, Deadpool's looking pretty good, and they're like, well, maybe we should do more with Deadpool.
And then comes the Deadpool video game.
Deadpool versus Carnage, the Versus series that they're doing.
Yeah, the X-Force series, which I can't wait to get into issue #2 when that comes. I think it's a monthly, so it comes out next month.
So, I mean, social media is allowing that kind of stuff to happen, but then it also allows stuff to happen like what happened to Superman, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, where you announce... There's a lot of casting announcements that go on Facebook.
Right.
And you see that such and such has been cast as a certain character. And it allows people to react immediately. This movie is going to be horrible. Why do they have so many characters in this movie? Now, we're not saying you're not allowed to have an opinion, but I think what it's doing, Nick, is it's actually making people draw conclusions that you can't possibly draw because you don't know anything about the movie.
Right.
Just because somebody is cast doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have more than a 2-minute role in the movie, and they're not going to give you that information.
Yeah.
They're just going to say, hey, guess what? This person was cast. This is great news. We just wanted to share it with you. But it's causing reactions immediately because people are forming... It's almost like you're forming it in your head before you get a chance to actually see a trailer or anything about the movie at all.
Well, also think about it this way, too. This allows people to do what we do. Make podcasts, make fan page, write blogs, even get paid for them.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know. Cosplayers. You can.
Oh, it's huge for cosplayers.
You can if you're somebody starting out, or you're like, what kind of cosplay should I do? You can look at our cosplay and say, hey, I would like to do that kind of cosplay.
Not to mention that, and I've done this a few times at Cosplay Tuesday, actually. I'll go to a cosplayer's page that we know and love, and I'll see how they'll repost a cosplay of one of their friends, and that's how sometimes I find out about certain cosplayers. Without Facebook, without Twitter, maybe I don't find... Some of these people are just starting out. They've only got like a couple hundred likes on Facebook, and we find them, and we want to give them that exposure, and social media allows us to do that, and it allows them to expose their art form as well, because there's some great cosplayers out there that nobody knows about, simply because... It's hard to get the word out there. I mean, sometimes you just have to be spotted at a con by the right person. You're on social media, you have the opportunity to branch out to millions of people that might love your craft.
Well, for example, our buddy Chris Cho, like when we saw him at Comic-Con a few months ago, and I'm like, oh, cool, Iron Man, or Captain America, I mean. And you saw him his Captain America outfit at the front door, and you're like, no, dude, wait, he does an amazing Aquaman.
Yeah.
And it's like, I want to see it, and it's amazing. And then we would talk more to him, and what we found, he's an artist.
Yep.
You find out these things through social media.
Exactly.
You know, people you don't talk to every day, you know, whether they're across the world or whoever, you know, you talk to them and you learn more about them, what they're doing. You know, for Christ's sakes, if it wasn't for social media, we wouldn't have had our cosplay episode with Pterodactyl.
That's right. And I got to say that it works for the entertainment industry as well. Can I just say that Stephen Amell has the best
Yes!
Facebook page ever. And it's not one of those pages. Now, we know a lot of the celebrity pages are run by publicists and people that are monitoring posts.
Yeah, it's easy to tell.
This is totally him being him. And I think it actually, and I think a show like Arrow is a perfect example. Him being himself and being so interactive with the fans, it makes people want to be a fan.
Yeah.
So social media is allowing you to do that much easier.
And that's what we're doing, like even on our own page. We are who we are on the page, who we are in real life.
That's
like,
right.
And even on the podcast. You know, but, you know, we both work in radio. We work for stations. Totally different formats.
Yeah.
But, you know, it helps. You know, when we're at work and we're, hey, social media, check out our Facebook page, here's what's coming up
Exactly.
next on this, or this song, or this guest, or whoever is coming to the station. You know, for example, I'll say this, Trey Songz
Yep.
came to where we worked last Friday, and it's actually my profile picture. Nicest dude ever!
Yeah.
How did I find out? Nobody really told me about it. I saw on the Facebook page, hey,
There you
he's
go.
going to be here.
And it's funny, and I think that Mike Federale would agree that for Tidewater Comic-Con,
Oh my god,
harder-
over 9,000 likes!
How much harder would it have been for them to kickstart this without social media, starting out on Facebook and then branching to Twitter and Instagram? They just went on Instagram, I think. Recently.
Instagram I still don't get. I still don't get Instagram.
It's Twitter. It's Twitter
It's
for pictures.
It's just Facebook photos for Facebook photos.
That's all it is. So don't expect us to be on Instagram anytime soon.
No.
But and I mean, I think it would be very. And how would people know about all these events that Tidewater Comic Con has? Like they have a big event for Batman Day,
Yes.
coming up next week at various locations. So now you get to let people know about that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many events that they've got going on leading up to the con that maybe you wouldn't. I mean, you would have to go pass out flyers and hope that people don't throw them in the trash. But now on social media,
Trust me, I've been to the place where I've worked at places where you've had to hand out flyers and people throw them in the trash, and it's. I don't care what anybody tells you. You can work in the sales or whatever for many, many years. But it's very disheartening when people do that. They just throw it to the side.
we hand out cards.
Yeah, we do.
sometimes,
But
and-
nobody throws them away.
No, that's right.
Nobody throws them away. And literally, probably at least 70%, 78% of the time, people will like the page.
Not only
just for
that, but I'm going to tell you right now that if you see our cards, at
Oh,
various
people love them.
places,
They're hilarious.
If you see them, I've probably put it there.
Yeah.
Or Nick has put it there. I
Yeah.
will put our cards
Or
in
Cody.
various locations.
Because remember, Cody rules Portsmouth.
That's right. So
So-
if you see our card in Portsmouth, that's probably where it came from.
Yes.
But I mean, and there's good and bad here, and I think for something like Stephen Amell's page, how he's always very, and he has the videos that he does.
Yeah.
And it allows him to branch out for his charity too, the Prayers for Sophie charity, where they're actually raffling off Arrow statues
Yeah.
right now for proceeds for his charity. So it allows them to get their outreach for their charity work. So it's not all bad.
No.
It's
I
not
mean, you're gonna
all
have, you're gonna have those jerks who in the comment section they say things. Like, I've learned not to read comment sections, but when I'm a big sports fan, so I would like to read the comments. I like reading the comment section like on Fans Take. For example, like during the last break, we took a break and I read about Carlos Boozer going to the Lakers. And I'm like, oh, I wonder what Lakers fans think. I'm a Lakers fan. So I'm like, and it's interesting because it's like, these are people I've never known would exist. Like, I have to go into a Laker board if they ever even existed.
And that's how it branches out too. I mean, that's kind of how we found the folks from Super Lampshade.
Yes!
Who Blair and Matt do a fantastic job. Are actually doing work for my son's nursery right now.
And he told me
It's
about the plans, and they sound spectacular.
So, and I will be putting that up on our Facebook page as well. And it allows us to share parts of our lives that, maybe you care, maybe you don't.
Show us your shirts Saturday.
Right, exactly.
Every Wednesday, James and I take a picture of all of the comics we've gotten. There's times where I'll just be like, oh, I'm playing a video game. Let me do a snapshot of my screen.
I found Batman on IFC the other day, and I took a picture of it. So, and we had a listener tell us once that we got to put the faces with the podcast, and that made it so much cooler.
Yeah.
So, and that's that. And without social media, how would we do that?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of great things about social media. Now, number one rule of social media, boys and girls:
don't feed the trolls.
There you go. Thank you very much.
Don't feed the goddamn trolls.
That is all you need to do.
I'd rather feed a fucking Magua than a troll.
Yeah, after midnight.
After midnight,
by the way.
And while in the shower.
Yeah. So just keep that in mind when you see people that post something that's utterly ridiculous. You don't have to comment on it. You don't have to keep it going. If you don't fuel them, they will go away. Now, you're allowed to have your opinions too. So if you're one of those, bravo to you for having your opinion. Everybody's allowed to have one. And that is the thing with social media. Is not only does everybody get to have an opinion, but everybody gets to see everyone's opinion too. So when I read stuff like how horrible Batman vs. Superman is going to be because Cyborg's going to be in it and Aquaman's going to be in it, it makes me want to say, you don't know what you're talking about. They're going to be in the movie for 2 minutes. Shut up. But I don't do that.
You don't do that. That's the best thing. Whenever you're angry, you don't
press send. Don't press send.
I've known people who've done that and their careers have been ended by doing that.
You can type it out, look at it,
and then delete it.
So you'll feel much better.
Or doodle and journal. Draw, if you're upset at Joe Quesada, draw angry pictures of him in a devil costume.
I just tell my wife what I'm upset about, and then I'm done with it.
See, I don't have that. I don't have the girlfriend to say, how was your day, honey? Well, it was shit. I read Spectacular Spider-Man. I fucking hated it. How can they put Doc Ock in a Spider-Man suit?
Eventually, you'll have that out.
Eventually, I will have that.
And you'll understand what I'm talking about. And those of you with wives and girlfriends or husbands, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So you see these frustrating things. You have to press send. But I love the fact that we get all these trailers now.
Oh, God, yeah.
Trailers get released now on social media.
Yes.
So we get to see these trailers in media. I don't have to wait to see it on... we fast forward through the commercials on our DVR. Come on.
Not only that, but certain... I love stand-up comedy. I like Bill Maher. He did a stand-up comedy routine on Yahoo.
Yeah.
Streaming is a thing. Social media. It's you can stream stuff live on social media.
Exactly. It just opens us up to so many more possibilities. Hopefully you feel that way about our podcast. So, I think going into this, when you heard that we were going to talk about social media and its effects on the comic book industry, I think anybody that works in the comic industry would tell you that it has been a huge, huge plus for them to be able to market their product.
Oh, yeah. It's free publicity. It's the best publicity. It's free publicity.
Not only that, it's free market research.
Now here's the thing. This is number one do's and don't. This is people who I talked to somebody earlier in the week. They were asking me about, hey, you work in radio. I want to get in radio. What would I want? What should I do? Here's some tips. I said, you want to learn a board. Number one. And this is somebody who I know from we went to college together. But it's somebody I don't really talk to a lot. And I just said, hey, learn how to run a board. Internship. Also, start a podcast. That's how you can get better. And I even told him, I said, the way things are going, podcast is the now. Because you have control.
A lot of people have podcasts.
You control over your content. And it's kind of like, I've had people tell me, everybody has a podcast. Yes. But you will find a way to make yours your own.
You got to separate yourself.
You gotta, for example, we're at 100, as right now, 191 likes. All those likes are organic. We did not pay for those.
We're not paying for this stuff.
That's the thing is, people will pay for likes and followers and whatever. We don't do that. So yeah, are we upset that we don't have 1,000 likes or more?
Of course we are.
Of course. But each and every week, each and every day, it's growing, and we're noticing that. So hey, I'd rather it take a year to get to 500 likes than to do something false. It's kind of like I'd rather hit all those home runs naturally than do steroids.
Exactly. So, I mean, there's different ways to do it. And I'm not saying that those people that pay for likes are bad people.
No.
If that's the way you want to do it, hey, that's fine. I'd rather spend my money on something else.
But you do know that, like, but here's the problem though, with all those likes is that they're not permanent. You pay for them, but they're not a mandatory bump.
Right, exactly.
They will, like, because this happened with Twitter. Like, there have been bots that will follow me on Twitter, and I know they are. I just like,
when you
I'm
got
not gonna block them. Sometimes I don't block them, but I'm like, oh, I'm at like 100. I was at like, oh, I'm at 395. Now I'm at 394. Why is that? Oh, because this person that was following me, which I knew was a bot, isn't following me anymore.
Right, exactly.
It's so you can go from up to down. It's just it's like a time frame how many you have, and know too that like when you have the thousands of likes, you might have 10 likes. They're real people. And so you say, hey, we're going to be here. You're sending it to, I'm sending it out to 1,000 people, but really you might only send out to 10.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that's the thing.
By the way, sign up to get notifications for our page. That way you don't miss any of our posts. You know the little thing where it says like? Don't click on it. Just wait for it to get the drop-down menu and click on get notifications. You're good to go.
Yep, and that's what you got to do. But no, like I said, with social media, it just allows from the geek and nerd community, it just allows you to share things and be
not only that,
yourself.
It allows you to realize that there's so many of us out there.
Yes.
There's more people like you out there, and social media lets you contact those people directly, first of all. I mean, we've met some great people through social media and just doing this podcast.
But not only that, but just like when we first met guys like Mark Deering and Drew Moss and stuff, and it's like we still keep in touch with those guys because we're technically, well, at least consider we're friends with them because like we talk to them, a good amount of the time. It's not like, hey, we'll see you at the con. Okay, we won't talk to you. Hey, we'll see you back at the next con. No, I talk to Drew every couple of weeks.
And guys like Matt Slay, who actually you've seen comment on our page on several different things, and Mark Deering and Drew Moss have done as well. And they want to, they're interested in what we're doing, just like they're in.
And that means a lot. Like honestly, it's those guys right now. Like, that means a lot when you have guys with their profile saying
that are super talented.
That are talented. Not only following us and liking us, but like commenting.
Yeah, because
and it's like wow, these guys like what we do. And we talked about earlier about make your podcast different. We looked at before we put the show together. We were when we first started Down and Nerdy, we were like, okay, what kind of show do we want to be? We looked at other podcasts on the area. We noticed a lot of podcasts are local podcasts. They talk about Virginia, local stuff going on.
Not that we don't love where we live.
Not that we don't love where we live. But we're like, there's not really a nerd podcast that talks about stuff going on around the world. That's the main media circuit. And they're like, okay, let's do that, and let's focus on that. And sometimes we do add some a little bit of hometown beach flavor.
But if we're going to be out somewhere, it's going to be here probably. So there's that.
Yep. But I mean, other than that, it's just social media. It allows us to bring this to you every week and just pretty much just be happy and just say, hey, we're here, and hey, a lot. For example, I know there are nerds and geeks out there who might not have a lot of friends. And it's not everybody has a whole bunch of friends.
Right.
So, I mean, who knows, maybe there's a time where somebody's listening to the show, and we've had this message sent to us many times from people saying, hey, Friday nights I sit at home just by myself, just relaxing and just listening to you guys, and it's like I'm with friends.
Not only that, I think that for some people, too, social media, it allows them a safe place to kind of try and come out of their shell a little bit and extend an olive branch to have, friends and get comfortable talking to people on social media, and then, that allows them to become more comfortable talking to people outside of the social media realm. So I think that has also been a good thing as well.
Yep, and speaking of social media, follow us on Facebook, or actually like us, follow us for Twitter. Like us on Facebook at Down Nerdy, Facebook.com/Down Nerdy. Follow us on Twitter at Down Nerdy 757. I'm at Nick Battaglia 25 on Twitter. James.
I'm at James Ace Witham. And actually, if you want to do the old-fashioned email thing, it's downandnerdypodcast@gmail.com.
Send us questions. Send us, anything. It can be questions on anything. It can be personal, it can be not, it can be whatever.
You got a fan film that you made, whatever.
Yeah, there's a topic, you say, hey, well, maybe this topic you guys might want to talk about, or just express an interest, and we would more likely bring it up on the podcast.
That's right.
So, hey, we're very approachable. So, again, thank you very much for listening. We're hopefully by the end of... I'm hoping by the end of July we're at 200.
Yes.
We're 9 away.
Let's make that happen right
Let's
now.
make that happen. Tell your friends about us. Let people know. Spread the word any way you can. I'm Nick.
I'm James.
And remember, people, practice safe comic book reading. Always bag and board your comics. Have a good week, and we'll see you next week, everybody.